Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Went Back in Time as a Quirkless Vigilante? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. This story is posted as a thank you to all my readers. Finally reached 1K followers on Wattpad, so This chapter was edited and reposted on Sunday, July 12th. You have to go. The older man shouted urgently, shooting a fierce glare towards his companion. If I leave you, you'll die. The younger argued, green eyes brimming with tears. You know as well as I do that we don't have a choice here. We always knew one of us would have to stay behind to destroy the portal. So why should I be the one to go? You're the teacher. The hero. What good could someone like me do? Izuku. The man's voice was harsh, and his sharp tone made the younger man's eyes focus on his friend. The elder's eyes softened. It must be you. You're not who you were back then. You aren't useless. Remember this, you are a hero. And the world is counting on you even if nobody realizes it. But, Izuku sniffled. What about you? I promised I'd look after you. When the time comes, give this to him. You'll know he trusts you when he calls you, problem child. He smiled fondly, handing Izuku a pair of rings on a chain. Deranged laughter filtered down the corridor, making the two stiffen. They hadn't expected him to show up. With that man in the building, they knew their defenses wouldn't hold for much longer. You need to go now. He pulled Izuku into a hug, as the smaller man clung to him for all he was worth, tears streaming down his face. This isn't goodbye. Yes, it is. Izuku's fingers dug into the man's shoulder. You won't be. That's ridiculous. I'll always be me. And you'll always be my problem child. The man then violently shoved Izuku backwards, making him stumble into the swirling vortex. Save the world, Midoriya Izuku. He smiled, a bright hopeful grin that looked so out of place on the man's exhausted face. The door behind him disintegrated into dust as a blue-haired man covered in severed hands grinned in glee, only to screech in rage upon seeing Izuku in the portal. With an indomitable fury, his hand latched onto the older man's face, covering his eyes so he couldn't escape his fate. Shoulda. With a smirk, Shoyuda clicked the big red button. The last thing Izuku heard, before being entirely consumed by the portal, was the gateway exploding. Pain was all that Izuku knew. It felt like his atoms were being torn apart and moved back together. The first thing he was aware of as the pain started to fade was that it was unusually bright outside. And someone was there. He tried to fall into a defensive crouch, but his body wouldn't obey. Instead he found himself on his but as he blinked up at All Might. I cannot simply say you can become a hero even without power. This was that day on the rooftop. Of course I had to go back to one of the worst moments of my life. Of course. He only looked back up when the iron door closed behind the blonde figure. Izuku winced as he staggered to his feet. He looked down at his younger hands. They were smaller than he was used to, but there was still that scar he'd gotten when he was 23 after he stupidly participated in a drunken round of the knife game. Wait a minute. He winced when his voice came out several octaves higher than he was used to, but ignored that for the moment. He instead looked himself over. Carefully peeling off his shirt, he looked down to find a familiar, yet vastly different body. His muscle was still there, as were all his scars. He could count his ribs, and his skin was shockingly pale. That slash he'd gotten from Anoma 2 weeks ago was still there and healing, but his body was also so much smaller. I'm 14 again. They had had no idea how things would pan out. For all their calculations and carefully run scenarios, Izuku and Shoyuda had no real way of knowing if this would even work. For all they knew, he'd be tossed back a few months or even to the womb. Or just killed. Shoyuda. Izuku breathed as the gravity of what had just happened hit him hard. He fell back against the wall behind him and brought his face to his knees. With no one there to witness anything, he freely cried for the first time since Zashi's death. He was truly alone for the first time in years, and it wasn't a good feeling. He felt isolated and lost, and he needed Shuta's strong, reassuring arms around him. He needed his best friend, his brother. And the realization that Shoyuta and Hisashi were still alive now didn't help any because they wouldn't remember him. He would be a stranger to them, and that just hurt him all the more. "Damn it, Sho," he sniffled, voice cracking. "I swear to God I'm going to make your life a living hell for pulling that kind of stunt." He aggressively swiped away his tears. "We were supposed to do this together, you a-hole." He looked down at the necklace clenched in his fist. Hisashi and Shuta's wedding bands sat innocently in his palm. With a shaky sigh, he put the necklace around his own neck and tucked it into his shirt, which he put back on. He looked down at his clothing. It was exactly what he'd been wearing in the lab that he and Shoyuta had occupied. How had All Might not? Time travel is so goddamned confusing. He shook his head. He patted himself down, smirking lightly as he realized he had all his weapons on his person. "So I've got 10 months until the entrance exams." He nodded to himself. He looked over the railing to the bustling city below him. He felt like his senses were on overdrive. He'd survived about 8 to 10 years in the deathly silence of a post-apocalyptic world where the slightest sound could very well get you killed. So a lively town filled with colorful noise and movement made him twitchy as hell, and set all his senses to high alert as he awaited the arrival of an enemy that he knew wasn't going to come. As if I wasn't socially awkward enough before. He shook his head. Izuku had no intentions of going back home. His dear mother had never taken kindly to his quirklessness. She had been a kind and loving woman once, but his father had come home when he was about 5 and slowly poisoned her mind. So even though his father was off on long business trips and never home, his mother had dished out plenty of neglect more often than not. She wasn't outright abusive, but she could care less if he was even there or not. With that thought in mind, he carefully leapt from one rooftop to another, avoiding the more populated areas as he made his way back to his mother's apartment. He was honestly surprised he remembered where it was, let alone which window was his. It had been long enough that he'd hardly remembered the apartment number. The only way he recognized the room was because of that crack on the window from when he'd gotten mad at age 7 and threw something at it. Izuku stole into his old bedroom, taking a moment to reminisce about his old childish room. The walls were covered in drawings of hero posters that he'd never been allowed to buy. He'd gotten much better at drawing them over the years, and the shelves were covered in replicas of hero merch that he'd eyed in the stores. The older ones he'd made from stolen Play-Doh at school, while the newer ones were made of actual clay he'd snitched from some pottery places around town, the scraps, that is. He smiled softly before grabbing a backpack and stuffing it with clothes, provisions, and blankets. He carefully took the 3 Eraserhead figurines, 5 Present Mic figurines, and 1 Midnight figurine. He grabbed his analysis notebooks and a fair supply of pencils, clay, and paints before sneaking into his mother's room and snagging some money. With that done, he grabbed one picture, taken on his 3rd birthday, before everything went to shit, and fled out the window. There was only one place he could think of that he could stay without having to answer any unnecessary questions or interact with people: Dagoba Beach. He couldn't help but grin as he came upon the heaping mountains of trash. Nobody would bother him here. That's for sure. He dug his way through the trash before finding an old abandoned camper. He'd need to clean it out, but it'd be perfect. He grinned as he went inside. It smelled terrible, but he'd lived in worse. At least he'd be warm. Being a kid again, Izuku decided, was weird. Gone was his stubble and deep voice, and back was that awkward higher-pitched squeaky voice he'd been stuck with until he'd hit 16 or so. It had been about 2 weeks since his return, and Izuku was finally settled. He'd cleaned out the camper and scrubbed every inch of it with bleach he'd bought from the local dollar store. Beggars can't be choosers, but he was going to minimize as many health risks as he could. By the time he was done, the place was practically sparkling. He'd fixed the moldy, leaky roof too. The engine was shot to hell, but that was fine by him. He wasn't planning on going anywhere, anyways. But he was also getting restless. He had a backpack that had come back with him from the future that had plenty of supplies and plans that he and Shoyuta had worked on together, and sometimes just seeing Shuta's handwriting made him tear up. But his old vigilante outfit was in there too. And it got him thinking. In the years before Shigaraki destroyed the world, Midoriya Izuku had been a vigilante known as Viridian. He'd tried to find a solid career as a quirkless nobody. He'd ended up eventually trying his hand at support items, but even helping heroes didn't satisfy his deep-seated need to help people. And back then, there'd been a lot more people that needed help than the heroes could reach, so Izuku had taken it upon himself to answer those quiet cries for help. He smiled softly as he held the dark green jumpsuit. The mask looked more like an old-school ninja's, leaving his green eyes open for the world to see. He held it up in front of him and frowned. Of course, the outfit was made with his adult self in mind. So his tiny prepubescent self was not going to fit into that outfit. Time for Plan B. Plan B was to go by the local discount store and buy a Halloween costume and then modify it to look as close to his vigilante outfit as possible. The end result was a black jumpsuit with multiple hidden pouches, as well as a bunch of pouches that resembled a utility belt, that looked reminiscent of a ninja. It wasn't as durable as he would have liked, and it wasn't anything resistant, but it'd have to do. He pulled up the head mask, which left only the slit for his eyes, and attached his weapons to his person. He looked in the cracked mirror he'd salvaged from the dump. He looked like a good old-fashioned ninja, like an actual shadow person. He was kind of cool if he did say so himself. He tightened his bootlaces, 5-finger discounted from the mall, and triple-checked his mask. He was finally ready to go. Izuku sighed as he readied himself to go out on his patrol. It had been about 2 months since he started doing these again, and it was dreadfully easy. He'd had no idea how uncommon vigilantes were before the League of Villains attack on Yui. In fact, there were only a handful in Japan who lasted more than a week. Even though he was still dreadfully malnourished from his time in the future, he rarely had any trouble bringing down criminals. They just weren't anywhere near the same caliber as the Nomu he was used to facing. Because of this, he was starting to make a name for himself. The internet, in particular, was starting to whisper about a new vigilante who was protecting civilians in the harsher, less patrolled areas that heroes seemed to forget. Places like South Mizudafu, where the unwanted of society seemed to end up. He'd learned from the misfortune of others that if he didn't come up with a name for himself, that the police and internet would come up with one for him. And they didn't always come up with the best of names. So Izuku decided, since he was also kind of shit at names, to stick with the one he'd had in his previous timeline, Viridian. He smirked as he tied up a group of drag traders who were glaring at him. He chuckled. The new voice modifier made his voice sound deeper and older. It sounded like his future self, which honestly put Izuku more at ease. "Do me a favor, would ya?" He grinned beneath his mask as he looked at the 3 men. "Let the cops know that Viridian says hi." With that, he nimbly scaled the side of the building, finding handholds and footholds where most people would find none. Within minutes, the police were on the scene, responding to the phone call of the frightened civilian he'd saved. A man with a familiar tan trench coat stepped out of one of the vehicles. Viridian grinned. "So they've finally brought Tsukachi on? This'll be interesting." He knew of the detective from his original vigilante career. He was a good man and a fantastic detective. Viridian was going to have fun with him. "All right, detective." Viridian muttered to himself. "Let the games begin." "Ihavanome. Dude, have you heard of that new vigilante in Mizudafu? The Kikisalai, Viridian, right? He's all over the chat rooms. Nobody can stop talking about the guy. Dragonine address. I think he's just a rumor. Nobody's seen him but the people he's supposedly caught, after all. Moldy Broccoli, I saw him. I swear. He totally saved me the other night. These guys were about to attack me, and he just hops down from the rooftop like a badass and saves me. He looks like a ninja but has green eyes." Noiscardily, "You serious?" The Kikisalai, "I'm glad you're okay. Did you get a picture?" Dragonine address, "I still don't think he's real." Moldy Broccoli, "I got a grainy shot. It was dark. Gimme a sec, I'm new to this site." Noiscardily, "Upper left of your chat box, click the dots. Should have an option for an attachment." Moldy Broccoli, "Thanks." Moldy Broccoli, Savior.jpg. Demonic gay microwave, "Holy shit, he's real." Dragonine address, Could be photoshopped. Barbie's War, Just admit you are wrong, Essench. Moldy broccoli. At any rate, I owe Viridian my life. He's got a new fan in me for sure. Hashtag Viridian, hashtag heroes, hashtag vigilante, hashtag Viridian hero chapter text. This chapter was edited and reposted as of Sunday, July 12th. Viridian grinned. He was having a blast. It had been nearly 4 months since he'd become a vigilante again, and the lower crime rates of this time allowed him more time to mess with his favorite detective. They'd already brought the heroes on board, as was protocol when a vigilante ran rampant for too long. He enjoyed his little game of hide and seek, if you will. If he was stuck as a kid again, he was going to enjoy every minute of it. So far, nobody but the villains he left for Tsukachi had seen him, and he now held a reputation as one of Japan's most elusive vigilantes to date, something he was rather proud of. Tonight, he was playing a game with Tsukachi and the hero that the detective had invited along midnight. Viridian would admit. It was hard to see her again. She'd been like family to him in his original timeline, and knowing that she wouldn't even recognize him now made his heart constrict painfully. It was part of the reason why he was playing this game tonight. If he couldn't even handle seeing Nemuri again, how on earth would he handle seeing Hizashi or Shoyuta? And he had no doubts that Eraserhead would soon be brought on to his case. The man was well known for his ways with vigilantes. Viridian had been leaving notes with each criminal he'd captured tonight. Each one had some sort of puzzle or code that Tsukachi had to crack, which would lead him to the next clue or villain. Izuka had spent the last week and a half making them all, so he was greatly enjoying the chaos that was unfolding. Especially when Tsukachi found one clue taped under his desk. How the hell did he get in here? Tsukachi growled, rifling through the security footage, which had since been edited. Looks like Viridian is pretty tech-savvy. Midnight tapped her chin as she looked around the office. I have little doubt he can hear us right now. Tsukachi growled as his phone pinged. Viridian chaos. Sure can, Tsukachi-kun. How did you? You know what? I'm not even going to ask. He shook his head as Midnight came over to look over his shoulder. So this guy's got us bugged too. She looked herself over. Viridian chaos. Don't bother with it right now, Kiyama-chan. I'll deactivate the bugs as soon as tonight's game is done. No worries. How the hell does this guy know my name? Midnight growled, eyes scouring the room as if she could find the vigilante hiding under a chair. That's just how he is. Tsukachi sighed, placing a calming hand on her shoulder. Don't take it too personally. He's got information on just about everyone that we have no idea how he got a hold of. Now come on, this clue has coordinates to follow. With that, the two sped off towards the coordinates. Viridian laughed as he followed them along the rooftops. He'd been at this game since early that evening around 6 p.m. and it was now nearly 12 a.m. He'd kept the two far past their shifts, but it was for a very good reason. Because while they were busy following his breadcrumbs and rounding up the criminals he'd captured, Viridian was busting open a very large and highly dangerous drag ring, one that he didn't want to let the detective participate in due to the volatile nature of the drags they were handling. To someone with a quirk, getting hit by these drags could be devastating, as their effects were known to permanently damage someone's quirk factor, sometimes completely destroying it altogether. But to Viridian, who had no quirk factor, it was as harmless as saline. And the faces on the gang leaders when they shot him with the drag and he just brushed it off was priceless. How? That should have destroyed your quirk. The man cried out, terrified, as he backed away. Even if it takes a bit to activate, it should at least cause you debilitating pain. His men were already unconscious around him, and the man he'd been trading with watched with an interested gaze. So you're the new vigilante on the block. Viridian, yes. The man had dark brown hair and a mask that reminded Viridian of an old witch doctor. Yes. And you are Chisaki Kai, better known as Overhaul. Your information network is as impressive as they say. You're one elusive man, you know. Was that a compliment? Could be. Overhaul pulled out what looked to be a business card. If you ever find yourself in need of comrades, I can make you great. I appreciate the offer, Chisaki-san, but I'm afraid that I work for myself. He answered carefully as he casually knocked the whimpering drag trader out. turning his entire focus towards the Yakuza boss. I had a feeling you'd say that. So what do you say to a mutual partnership? Viridian could hear the grin in Chisaki's voice as he spoke. I'll leave you to think on that. Contact me if you change your mind. He let out a breath of relief when the masked man left. He knew Overhaul was one of the worst kinds of villains one could encounter. He wasn't stupid enough to pick a fight with him right off the get-go, especially when he had no backup. He vaguely remembered hearing about the man torturing children and keeping one girl who was rumored to be his daughter captive. He clenched his fist. I'm sorry, little girl. You're going to have to wait a little while longer, okay? I can't get to you yet. He mentally apologized. Viridian shook his head and rounded up the villains in the warehouse before tying them all up and getting the final prize ready. Tsukachi and Midnight were going to hate him so much for this, but their reactions would be hilarious. Tsukachi Naomasa was not happy. He'd been sent on a wild FNG goose chase with Midnight for nearly 6 hours straight. He was tired, and that stupid vigilante Viridian had been mocking them all night long. At one point, the BS Sturdy had even led them to Tsukachi's favorite cafe. And upon walking in, the barista had held out his and Midnight's favorite drinks, claiming that someone had come in earlier to pay for them. He'd even specified the time for pickup. And of course, there was no physical description or video on the security cameras to tell them anything they didn't already know. The detective was far beyond done, and his hero companion for the night looked frazzled and high-strung, too. He had half a mind to just call it quits and give up on Viridian for the evening when they finally discovered the last clue. Or, what Naomasa prayed was the last clue. Viridian Chaos, I see you've made it to the final clue. Just in time, detective. Come find your treasure. He shook his head as he read the text. This guy was so childish. The location in question was an old warehouse. He could smell the gunpowder from outside, meaning that something had gone down here recently. He signaled for his team and Midnight to be on high alert as they rushed into the warehouse. Freeze! Police! He paused as he stared at a large group of men tied up and suspended from the rafters. They were making muffled protests through their jijis, as a spotlight, of all things, illuminated a large old-fashioned treasure chest like what you'd see in pirate movies. It looked big enough for a grown man to climb into. Was this a sneak attack? No, Viridian was clever. He wouldn't allow himself to stay in such a restricted and obvious location. So who or what was inside? Tsukachi gave a long-suffering sigh as he ordered his men to round up the villains and approached the chest cautiously. Midnight gave him a subtle nod and they opened it together. Inside were thousands of golden coins? They're chocolate. Midnight realized. Tsukachi would not be proud of his momentary lapse in self-control as he screamed out in frustration and anger. Viridian! They heard laughter echo around the warehouse and everyone stiffened. The vigilante was still here. I see you found your treasure, detective, the voice was low, and he'd placed the man somewhere around late 20s to early 30s. Come out now, Viridian. We've got the place surrounded, you've nowhere to run. That's what you think. Now, let me just clarify something before you come after me with guns blazing. The man sounded more amused than anything else, and no matter how hard Tsukachi looked, he couldn't see any sign of the man that was speaking. Those men down there? They came here earlier tonight for a drag trade. Viridian continued. It's actually why I kept you occupied all night. Can't have any of you in the line of fire for this, after all. From the shadows of the rafters, a single briefcase fell to the floor. One trigger-happy cop fired at where the case had fallen from, and a pained grunt followed. Shirke, hold your fire. Tsukachi ordered. We don't want him dead. So nice to know you care, Tsukachi. Viridian chuckled as a few drops of blood fell onto the briefcase. Evidence. We can run the blood through the system to figure out who he is. Tsukachi quickly gathered what he could. All the while, the vigilante chuckled. Gather whatever you want, it'll bring you nowhere. I promise you, detective, you won't find me that way, but A+ for effort. You said you wanted to keep us away from here. Why? Midnight pressed. Because of what's in that briefcase. I may be a vigilante, but I love heroes. You guys are my idols, even if I couldn't become one myself. Tsukachi heard the truth in that. If you were hit by one of those, it would have ended your career. What is it? Tsukachi asked, eyeing the bluish substance in the tubes. A drag that severely damages and in some cases completely destroys your quirk factor. The room stopped breathing. As far as I know, these are the only ones in existence right now. And they take a good hour to do any permanent damage. If you work fast, you can find a way to counteract it just in case I missed some. You ran us around the city so there'd be no risk of someone getting hit with this? Midnight asked. Yep. And it was any less dangerous for you because? I'm not revealing all my secrets, detective. Let's just say that I've got defenses against that none of you have. He's telling the truth. Tsukachi ground out. As much as he hated to admit it, this guy was really looking out for them tonight. He was honestly trying to protect them. Well, as much as I'd love to stay and chat, I've got to get this lovely gunshot wound your man gave me treated before it gets much worse. So I'll see you later, and since we've finally met in person, I'll just call you Naomasa, K? No, you cannot call me by my given name. Tsukachi growled, but there was no response. That night, Viridian escaped, and none of them could figure out how. They'd found a blood-soaked beam in the rafters where he'd been shot, and presumably where he'd been talking from, but the blood trail ended pretty quickly. Nobody was admitted to a hospital with a gunshot wound that night or within the next few days that matched what little description they had, and though he wouldn't admit it, Tsukachi was actually a little relieved when the vigilante showed up on patrol again 3 days later. He wasn't about to forgive him for that hellish night of treasure hunting, but he realized that this guy was closer to a hero than a villain. Perhaps it was finally time to call in Eraserhead. Moldy Broccoli, guys. Have you heard? Viridian's on the list. Demonic Gay Microwave? A list? Ihavanome, they mean the vigilante list. Basically, it means that Viridian is now a legally recognized vigilante. Moldy Broccoli, yeah. It's so cool. Barbiezaur, how's that cool? I thought you liked him? Moldy Broccoli, it's cool BC, it means that he's doing good. Noisegardily. Right, because he's capturing a lot of villains, he's making them look bad, so they want to catch him sooner. He's climbing the vigilante ranks pretty fast, actually. Notably good at hiding himself, he hasn't been spotted yet. The Kikisalai, that's neat. Hey, sorry to change the topic, but have any of you got the new Animal Crossing? Ihavanome, yeah. It's so cool. Izuka sighed as he casually strolled through the back alleyways leading to Dagoba. He'd already gotten into a few smaller fistfights with the local homeless thugs who'd been trying to sleep on his beach. He'd been homeless enough times in the first run how he'd started referring to his original timeline that he understood the importance of protecting your territory. If he just let any old homeless beggar sleep on his beach, then he'd find himself dead fairly quickly. Or they'd take his stuff, which could lead him to death. Either way, there wasn't much trust amongst the homeless. He couldn't afford to be nice. Especially when any little injury had a fairly high risk of getting infected and putting him out of commission. That was something he could not afford. He had to get into UA no ends ifs or buts. His unwanted neighbors, those who slept in the alleyways and parks surrounding the beach, were learning fairly quickly not to mess with the seemingly defenseless child. And after last week's incident where he coolly stared down a beggar with a gun, well, let's just say that he was not only earning their respect but their fear too. He didn't mind so long as they left him alone. He was now officially out of money. He'd made it last as long as he could, but it wasn't like he had any income. He'd gotten lucky with those chocolate coins in the treasure hunting gig he pulled, but what else was he supposed to do after winning a year's supply of chocolate coins? He sure as hell couldn't eat all that. Besides, the recording of Naomasa losing his sheet was priceless and still made him chuckle. One day he and the detective would look back on that video and laugh. Probably. But his most pressing issue now was food. He was able to shower at the local gym. The locks were dreadfully easy to pick, and he'd five-finger discounted all the hygiene items he'd needed. He did the same with light snacks and the like, but he felt bad stealing like that. Water was easy enough to come by. The parks had plenty of water fountains that he could rehydrate at. Plus, the dented hydro flask he'd found in his dump was perfect after he'd bleached it out. Seriously, The previous owner had somehow grown mold and decided to toss it thereafter. It just needed a good soak in bleach and hot water. People were so lazy these days. But well, more for him. But he couldn't keep stealing loaves of bread like some discount Aladdin. He needed to actually find a way to buy food. Actual groceries and stuff. He couldn't survive off bread and jerky forever. Especially since he was still recovering from his near starvation in the apocalypse and all his vigilante activities. He couldn't get a job though. He had to be at least 15 to work at any real establishment, and even then he had to have his school's permission. No way Aldra would grant him that. Never mind the fact that he was quirkless, he'd have to pay them to hire him. So getting a job was out. He briefly considered Shisaki, but quickly shuddered. Hell no. He'd worked under the guy once, and swore to never make the same mistake again. So where did that leave him? Food from the shelters? No, too many questions. Homeless adults were one thing, but a homeless kid with no parental supervision? He'd get CPS called on his but faster than he could outrun Tsukachi. And Izuku did not want to get chucked into the system or be sent back to his mother. Besides, the food banks required you to register yourself, which included a quirk, something that would instantly disqualify him, as he'd learned from experience. Quirkless discrimination. Welp, what do you think, Sho? He turned to look at an old photo he'd found at the bottom of his bag. It had been taken within the first few years of the apocalypse. Shoyuta stood, a hand on Izuku's shoulder as Hisashi had an arm flung around the both of them. Nemuri stood on Izuku's other side, ruffling his hair. Power Loader stood in the background, smiling fondly beside Dabi and Tamaki. Good time he missed his family. Tears pricked the edges of his eye as he looked away. I know. I'm being stupid. He chuckled humorlessly to himself. I dunno, guys, maybe it's the hunger talking? At any rate, I'm open to suggestions. Silence. He scuffed his foot against the carpet of the camper. It was too quiet. He couldn't take the quiet any longer. Abruptly he stood. Okay. He clapped his hands. Since the food issue is too much for me right now, let's just, do something else. He glanced out the window where the late afternoon sun shone through. It's too early for patrol. He pouted. But? He reached over and pulled out the laptop he'd salvaged from the dump. Well, salvaged was a bit of a stretch, considering the fact that he'd practically built the DMN thing from scratch. He booted it up. He grinned as he played some music. Let's get hacking then. Viridian had just finished tying up some unsavory thugs. One man glared at him, and he chuckled. This guy's glare had nothing on Shigaraki. He'd never really been concerned about villains seeing him. Or heroes or cops, for that matter. It was more of a game, really. He wanted to see how long he could go before they sighted him. So far, it had been 4 months, and no hero or cop had actually laid eyes on him. So you're that FING Viridian guy? Yep. He smirked. You're shitting me. You're Japan's most elusive vigilante. Another guy scoffed. Oh, so I'm the most elusive now? I got an upgrade. He grinned, waiting for the telltale sound of sirens in the distance. He paused, sensing something else. Quick as a shadow and quiet as snow, he ducked out of the sights of the villains as he scaled the side of the alleyway before perching atop the roof. Not a moment later, a very familiar figure entered the alleyway. He blinked back tears, ducking behind the ledge so as not to be seen. Viridian ducked behind the edge of the alleyway just as a man rounded the corner. He had a strange scarf wrapped around his neck that seemed to hide something yellow, and was dressed in black. The messy, unkempt hair and perpetually exhausted look lead him to believe that this was the hero Eraserhead, famous among vigilantes. The man was rumored to be sharp and quick, so he had to get out of there before he... Who's there? Eraserhead demanded as he immediately ran towards Viridian's hiding spot. Sheet! Viridian quickly climbed the fire escape just as the man found him. He felt something wrap around his left ankle and yank him down to street level. Ah, come on. That's cheating. I thought you had a normal scarf. Viridian complained. He didn't care that it made him look childish. He'd had a very long night. Before he had much more time to complain, the man had him wrapped tightly and securely in the bindings. Who are you? Viridian. So you're that vigilante? You're shorter than I expected. Well, excuse me for growing up neglected and half-starved. Not my fault my growth was stunted. I'm going to have to take you back to the station. For what? I haven't broken any laws. Viridian huffed. He tried to cross his arms, but the scarf was too tight, so he settled for a pouting look. Nice try, kid, but I'm an adult, I'll have you know. You're a kid to me. Eraserhead glared. Vigilantism is a crime. So I'm placing you under arrest. You have no proof that I used a quirk. Vigilantism is defined as a person who uses their quirk illegally to take down crime. I've got a friend that can help me with that. He yanked on the scarf, making Viridian stumble after him. Now come on, you're wasting my time. I want to sleep tonight, thanks. Viridian was glad not for the first time that he was a paranoid bastard. He waited until Eraserhead turned away to lead him from the alleyway before he grinned. He slipped off the caps he kept on his canines, revealing very sharp fangs. Years ago, he'd asked a good friend who had a transmutation quirk and happened to be a dentist to file down his teeth into fangs, just the canines, and reinforce them with the strongest metal he could. The guy happened to owe Izuku a favor, so he did so without raising a fuss, though he did charge him a small fortune. Now, Viridian was very grateful for this decision as he silently tore through the bindings with said fangs. Eraserhead looked behind him just in time to see Viridian disappear over the rooftop. He cursed. Viridian shook himself out of his flashback, tongue absently running over the exposed fangs. He figured he should keep them out as Viridian and hide them as Izuku. He hadn't realized how hard this would be. He wanted nothing more than to jump down into that alleyway and hug him. He doesn't know you. You're nothing but a vigilante to him. He's not Shoyuta, he's Eraserhead. They aren't the same person now. He took a deep breath. Luckily, he'd had a few weeks of experience with Nemuri, so this was a lot easier than it would have been without. He shook his head and looked back over the edge, watching as Eraserhead scoured the area for him. Viridian barely dodged out of sight as Eraserhead looked up, and he heard the capture weapon wrapping around the nearby fire escape. Well, Viridian had no intentions of replicating how they met in the original timeline. He wasted no time in making his own escape. He leapt over rooftops with as much grace and practice as the man behind him. Eraserhead was fast, but Viridian had had plenty of practice running across rooftops while trying to outrun dangerous and hungry monsters. Compared to that, this was a leisurely jog. He locked eyes with Eraserhead over his shoulder as he finally shook him off his tail. That made Eraserhead the first person to actually see him. Naomasa was going to flip his sheet. But first, he smirked, knowing that Eraserhead would still be looking for him. Now that he'd had a breather to calm down and really process his situation, he found himself giddy. He knew how to get under Aizawa Shuta's skin like nobody else, and he was going to have fun this go around, okay? So maybe he was a little bitter at how the man had captured him in the original timeline. Viridian Chaos. Hello, Eraserhead. Nice night we're having. Watson, how the hell did you get this number? Viridian Chaos. I have my ways. Watson changed their name to Eraserhead. Viridian Chaos added Detective Holmes to the chat. Detective Holmes, Viridian. What are you up to now? Eraserhead, you mean he does this a lot? Detective Holmes. More than you know. Viridian Chaos. I just thought you'd be happy to know that Eraserhead here is the first person to officially see me. Detective Holmes, you're shitting me. You really saw him? Eraserhead, yeah. He's shorter than I expected. Viridian Chaos. Hey, that's mean. I'll have you know my growth was stunted due to a neglectful childhood and malnutrition. Detective Holmes, mind giving us a name? Viridian Chaos. Viridian, winky face. Eraserhead, perhaps something more to go on? Like an age or birth date? Viridian Chaos, how about no? Look, I'm a vigilante, not stupid. I text you guys to mess with you because I'm bored. There are no villains out tonight, so I'm talking with you instead. Viridiancus, Eraserhead, I hear your sigh from over here. I left you some coffee 3 rooftops to your left. The bags under your eyes tell me you need it. He watched with a low chuckle as the hero immediately headed to said location only to find a bag of his favorite coffee grounds from his favorite cafe. The hero's head whipped around, startled. He growled when he couldn't find the vigilante. Eraserhead, how the hell did you know my favorite coffee? Detective Holmes, he has his ways. He knows everyone's favorite coffee, snack, sandwich and donut. I have no idea how he does it, but he does. Eraserhead, I'm going to lose a lot of sleep over you, aren't I? Viridian Chaos. Yep. Laughing face. Izuku chuckled as he checked the group chat that he'd created. It had himself, Naomasa, and Eraserhead. He'd probably add Present Mike eventually. Possibly midnight. The UA entrance exams were steadily creeping up, and Izuku had reluctantly kept attending Aldera Junior High. He could just hack the system and leave UA none the wiser, but he'd heard stories of Nisa's intelligence that was one basket of hornets he did not want to poke. It was easier for him to simply stay in school, patrol at night, and sleep in his refurbished camper whenever he had the chance. It wasn't like the schoolwork was hard either. But Bakugo was a FANG pain in his butt. It wasn't that the brat was strong or intimidating to him anymore. But Izuku had once physically defended himself against Bakugo, only for Izuku to nearly be suspended for defending himself. He couldn't risk a mark on his record. He had to get into UA, no matter what. So as much as he hated it, he had to SCK it up and take Bakugo's sheet. Though he tossed his own verbal remarks right back at the little brat, causing the blonde to blink in angered shock every time, which was rather entertaining. Especially when Izuku tossed in some profanity, when the teachers couldn't hear, of course. It actually made things somewhat interesting for him, as he had to find new and creative ways to outmaneuver Bakugo so he didn't get beat up after school. Besides, Izuku wasn't known for his fighting skills, so that was just another thing to separate Izuku from Viridian. By the 6-month mark, Viridian had been listed as one of the most wanted vigilantes in all of Japan. Not because he was that dangerous, he was, but they didn't need to know that, but because he was just that difficult to catch. And even after 6 months, the only people who he'd let see him were Eraserhead and Naomasa. There was once or twice where he'd let his silhouette be spotted on a rooftop, but Naomasa and Eraserhead were the only two he'd actually let fully see him in person, aside from the people he'd rescued and villains. He'd done some work in a few other towns, too, deciding to branch out to search for any sign of the League of Villains. Even in Tokyo, which had some of Japan's most prevalent and talented heroes, nobody had really gotten a good look at him, let alone gotten close enough to catch him. But now, he was back in Mizudafu. He grinned at the thought of Tsukachi and Eraserhead. They still had no idea that the guy they were chasing was a now 15-year-old middle schooler who didn't even have a quirk. He still left puzzles, riddles, and other games for his favorite detective and hero to solve whenever he had the chance. It ticked them both off, but he could tell he was growing on them. Aizawa Shoyuta honestly wasn't sure what to make of the newest vigilante, Viridian. The man was more elusive than Smoke and more annoying than Hisashi, something he wasn't sure was possible until he met Viridian. Somehow, though, the man was growing on him, like a fungus. An unwanted, irritating, disgusting fungus. Even after all these months, they were going on month 6, now, since Viridian started his vigilante career, they knew next to nothing about the man, and it was incredibly frustrating. They'd had a nice break these last few weeks where Viridian had been bothering the heroes and police in other cities, mostly Tokyo and Kyoto. The man was infuriatingly good at slipping away. Not a single hero had gotten close enough to even see him, let alone capture him. That meant that he and Tsukachi were still the only people who'd had the honor of seeing the man in the flesh. He scowled at his phone in his pocket when it quietly vibrated, letting him know that the very irritation he'd been thinking of was also thinking of him. Wonderful. Viridian Chaos. Eraser what's? Eraserhead, Viridian. Viridian Chaos. You're no fun. Detective Holmes. Any reason you two decided to distract me from my paperwork with this? Eraserhead. You could just silence the chat. Detective Holmes. Viridian Chaos. Oh, this is rich. You don't know how. Ha. You're such an old man. Winky face. Shoyuta had to admit, the fact that the detective didn't know how to silence the chat was kind of funny. though he'd never tell Viridian that. Eraserhead, was there a reason why you contacted me? Viridian Chaos, oh yeah. Wanted to let you know I'm back in town. Smiley face. Eraserhead, DMN. Here I thought I'd have a longer vacation. Viridian Chaos, you know you love me. Eraserhead, love? I think you misspelled loathe. Viridian Chaos. Tongue sticking out, don't be a grouch, you tsundere. By the by, you've got that drag bus tonight, right? Detective Holmes, I don't know why I even question how you know so much anymore. Yes, Eraserhead and I have a drag bus tonight. But Viridian Chaos, don't go. It's a setup. They know you're coming, you'll get hurt. Eraserhead stared at the phone for a full minute. This was not what he was expecting. Eraserhead, do you have any evidence to back up your claim? Viridian Chaos, nothing physical. I overheard a few things, and now I'm seriously worried about you guys. Detective Holmes, that's cute, but we've got jobs to do. Viridian Chaos, I mean it, Neo Mesa. Don't go. You too, Shoyuta. Eraserhead stiffened at his given name. How the hell had this guy gotten his civilian name? Eraserhead, I did not give you permission to call me by my name. Viridian Chaos, sorry, Aizawa. Is that better? Eraserhead, no. Viridian Chaos, too bad. Tongue sticking out either way, don't go. Eraserhead, sorry, but we've got a drag ring to bust. Viridian Chaos, Eraserhead. Viridian Chaos, Aizawa? Viridian Chaos, Shoyuta? Damn it, Sho, you'd better make it out of there alive. You too, Neo Mesa. Shoyuta would admit that he was a bit bothered by the way this man was using their given names so freely, but he didn't have much time to worry. They both needed to be at the top of their game for the bust tonight. 20 minutes into said bust, and he was cursing himself for not listening to Viridian. Here he was, Tsukachi at his side, held at gunpoint and quirk point by 20 armed men. He'd been right, it was a trap. A trap set up to capture a hero and take out as many cops as they could. Nearly all the men Tsukachi had brought with him were dead or too injured to do anything. Shuta's capture weapon was confiscated, as were his knives and the detective's gun. They were defenseless, and Shoyuta was cursing himself internally. He didn't see how this situation could get much worse. An interesting little catch we've made. The man grinned as he looked at the hero-detective duo that was tied up to a nearby support pillar in the warehouse. The man then turned to some of his men, barking at them to watch their prisoners before gathering the drags they'd originally come to take. Shoyuta glared at the man, but didn't activate his quirk. Erasing this man's quirk wouldn't help him or Tsukachi get out of their literal bind. If anything, they'd just BLNDFLD him and then he'd be completely useless. Any ideas how to get us out of this, Eraser? Tsukachi whispered through bloodied teeth. Shoyuta grimaced at the taste of blood in his own mouth. Nothing yet. He bit back a groan at his screaming ribs. He'd taken a rather nasty blow to his torso earlier that had sent him flying into the detective. They were both injured rather nicely, with nothing to show for their pain. He saw something moving quickly through the shadows, but brushed it off as a trick of the light. Or possibly a concussion. He eyed the table that held their weapons on the far side of the room. If only we could get our stuff. Shoyuta blinked. Once, twice. No, he was sure his capture weapon had been there a moment ago. But suddenly, the familiar fabric was missing from the table. His eyes darted around the room as he tried to find who may have taken it. Tsukachi nudged him gently and discreetly gestured for Shoyuta to look up. There, in the rafters, was a small dark figure. They were crouched, and Shoyuta easily recognized the scarf-like outline of his capture weapon. He prayed that this was another hero that had come to back them up. Before he could do much else, the figure dashed almost too quickly to follow. They threw out his capture weapon with an ease and grace that took Shoyuta years to achieve. What the? Nobody could use his capture weapon like him. He'd made sure of that when he'd asked the support course to design it while he was still a teenager. But here this stranger was, using it like they'd been training with it for decades. Who the hell are you? One by one, the grunts were quietly hoisted up into the rafters and silenced without drawing attention. It was masterfully done, and Shoyuta found himself admiring their technique. HM? Hey Garu, where's the? One of the men stopped and looked around. Hey, where'd everybody, he was quickly cut off as the figure threw down a smoke bomb, alerting the rest of the room to their presence. They then jumped down from the rafters and vanished into the thick haze. "Stay still and stay calm." He heard a voice whisper from behind him. "Viridian? What are you doing here?" Tsukachi whispered back. Shoyuta jolted. This was Viridian? The most elusive vigilante in Japan was right behind him, and he couldn't do anything. "Saving your buttes, what does it look like? I told you not to come." Shoyuta felt the bindings around his hands fall away and the familiar fabric of his capture weapon grace his hand. Judging from the look on the detective's face, the man must have also freed Tsukachi and returned his weapon. "You're one crazy vigilante, you know that? Most of you guys would celebrate this situation." Tsukachi hummed as he flicked the safety off of his gun. "You don't hear me complaining." Shoyuta huffed, readying himself for the attack. "But how the hell? Did Viridian learn to use my capture weapon?" Shoyuta wondered to himself. "I'm not like most vigilantes." "Yeah, we've noticed." Tsukachi smirked as the three of them ran into the dissipating smoke. Shoyuta was used to fighting with low visibility, and it seemed that Viridian was, too. The two of them managed to take out the remaining men just as the smoke completely vanished. The vigilante, detective, and hero all shared an uneasy and awkward look. "I suppose we owe you a thanks." Tsukachi had a sour look on his face as he said it. Shoyuta realized that this was the first time they'd really gotten a proper look at the vigilante. He was a lot shorter than Shoyuta thought he'd be. He was decked out in what looked like a ninja costume, complete with a short sword strapped to his back, and had brilliant emerald green eyes that shone like gemstones. He opened his mouth to say something, when the man's bright green eyes widened in fear. He shoved Shoyuta aside roughly just as a loud bang echoed around the warehouse. Tsukachi reacted quickly, firing off his own shot, killing the leader of the gang who'd shot at them. A wet cough made Shuta's eyes widen as he realized what occurred. "Hey, Viridian." He caught the probably older man as he staggered. He was bleeding heavily from his chest, where the bullet got him. "He took a bullet for me," Shoyuta realized. "That would have killed me. I'll be fine." "No, we need to get you to a hospital." Tsukachi quickly balled up some fabric and pressed it against the vigilante's wound. Viridian chuckled. "As much as I appreciate the concern, I've dealt with worse before. Besides, it's not as bad as it looks." Before Shoyuta or Tsukachi could do anything, Viridian roughly shoved them both away. "I'll text you guys tomorrow so you know I'm not dead." He winked before escaping out the window faster than either of them could give chase, leaving the two staring dumbfounded after him. They'd never admit just how grateful and relieved they were when Viridian texted them the next morning. Viridian laughed as he leapt across the rooftops like some old-school comic book hero. He'd been leading around his favorite hero and detective duo all night. He'd been a little off his game when he'd started this vigilante work again 7 months ago, but now he was back in full swing and ready to go. He'd been following any little whisper of the League of Villains. Maybe, if he could find Shigaraki, he could kill the BSRD before ever taking the UA exams. Crisis would be averted and the USJ incident wouldn't even happen. Then, they'd just need to worry about All for One, but that was really more of All Might's major problem anyhow. At the very least, All for One wasn't about to bring about the end of humanity as they knew it. At worst he'd forcefully take over Japan as a dictator again. But even that would be better than what he'd already lived through. He smirked as he landed down in an alleyway. This was their reward for all the crap they'd gone through. He knew his little games were beyond annoying, but they entertained him. Besides, at least he was helping them rather than hurting them. His games were usually to protect them, anyhow. Viridian was finally going to let Detective Tsukachi have a face-to-face conversation with him. The warehouse didn't count, because that was more battle banter than an actual conversation. Well, it was also a thank you for worrying about him. After he'd been shot a few weeks ago, he'd proceeded to return home, fix himself up and pass out. And DM'in they'd blown up their group chat while he'd been taking his little power nap. Izuku had been so touched when he'd awoken to 50 worried notifications, and had quickly replied to let them know he was alive and well. Or as well as one can be when they were shot the night before a major exam. Bakugo had been held to avoid that next day. The two warily stepped into the alleyway. He'd been careful to stay under the radar for the last few weeks, mostly due to his recovering injury. Viridian's note had explicitly told them to show up alone, no other cops. He smirked as he stepped out of the shadows, a tray of coffee cups in his hand. Neo Mesa. Bizawa. Good to see you two again. He smiled, though they could only see his bright green eyes. The two gave barely noticeable sighs of relief. Glad to see you're alive. How's your injury? Tsukachi asked. It's doing much better now. Thanks for asking. Viridian grinned. Tsukachi nodded to Eraserhead, acknowledging the truth of the statement. Why did you lead us here? Eraserhead asked. I got bored, and thought that after the games I've put you two through, the least I owed you was a face-to-face conversation. He shrugged, leaning against the brick wall casually. Plus, I figured you were still worried about the whole gunshot thing. He handed over the coffee, to which the hero and detective didn't even blink. Eraserhead quickly started drinking his. You do realize that we have a legal obligation to arrest you, right? Tsukachi asked in disbelief. Yep. But not tonight. I'm simply here to talk for as long as you want, but the moment you make a move to arrest me, I'm gone. So if you've got any burning questions, ask them now. He knew his green eyes were sparkling with amusement, because Eraserhead scowled. Who are you? Eraserhead growled. I am Viridian. Your real name. Something you'll have to figure out on your own. Good luck with that, though. How old are you? Tsukachi asked. Somewhere between the ages of 6 and 50. He smirked. Are you Japanese? Yes. They blinked at the straightforward answer. Born and raised. Why are you a vigilante? Tsukachi asked again. Tough question, detective. He tapped his chin for a moment as he thought. I suppose. I've always wanted to be a hero. But I failed every hero school entrance exam I took as a young teenager. I tried to live a normal, boring life, but he looked off for a moment. I can't help but want to help people. I just can't not help them. And if I have to do so as a vigilante instead of a hero, then at least I'm still helping others. At least I'm still saving lives. He's telling the truth. Tsukachi blinked incredulously. What, is that uncommon for vigilantes? Viridian tilted his head, confused. Most of the ones I've met just want to use their quirks in public. Tsukachi shook his head. Well, then, Mr. Lie Detector, let me let you in on a little secret, he chuckled again, a grin spreading across his face. I, Viridian, have never used a quirk during my vigilante activities. Why, you're shitting me. Tell me he's lying. Eraserhead choked. He's telling the truth. Doesn't that mean? Eraserhead looked like he wanted to bash his head against the brick wall. We can still get you for assault. Tsukachi glared. Section 24 subsection C states that assault charges are valid only when the accused party struck first. I always let my enemies strike first, even if said strike doesn't hit. You can ask any single one of the villains I've turned into you. Then, by the law, I've done nothing illegal. Viridian laughed lowly. Besides, the laws technically don't even affect a quirkless person. Even child custody laws don't matter. That's why Tsunagami-chan's son was put in the foster care system, even though she was alive, able, and had stable income. After her husband died, she was invisible to the law, and her son was taken away. He clenched a fist in anger, making a mental note to keep her husband from dying this go-around, before taking a deep breath. You legally can't arrest me. I'm so effing done. Eraserhead leaned against the brick wall next to him. Come, now, Eraserhead, don't be like that. And here I've come with an opportunity for you both. The two men stiffened. Opportunity? Yes. Now that we've established that, while I'm a vigilante I'm not technically doing anything illegal, I'd like to extend an offer of alliance with the two of you. Namely, I know a lot of things that go around. I've got an extensive information network. I can provide you with information. Be your eyes and ears beyond the police and hero networks. I'll be your gray area. You realize that we can't actually do that, right? Tsukachi didn't look impressed. Unless under extenuating circumstances. Viridian nodded. But fortunately for me, these are. He tossed a folder at Tsukachi's feet, and the man warily bent down to pick it up. His eyes went wide as he flipped through it. This case has been cold for weeks. I've been looking into it for you. I'm 98% sure that's where they're keeping the missing children. He locked eyes with the two. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm not asking you to like me. But the three of us have one thing in common: we want to save lives. And if I can help you do so, then why would you throw me away? He shoved his hands in his pocket. You know how to get a hold of me. Think about my offer, and shoot me a text if you want my help on anything. I also gave you my burner phone's number if you feel like dropping me a call, though I usually don't answer those. Just a warning. He glanced at the two. And for your own peace of mind, Detective, I have no intentions of hurting you, your men, or any heroes. Eraserhead, I don't mean you, your students if you have any this year, or your coworkers any harm. If anything, I just want to protect everyone I can. What do you want in return? Eraserhead's eyes narrowed. He hesitated for a moment. There's a man I'm after. His name is Shigaraki Tamura. If you find his information, please let me know. He's about as nasty a villain as they come. I don't want him to kill anyone else. You know we can't. Fine. Eraserhead cut off Tsukachi mid-sentence. Eraserhead, what do you mean, fine? If you really mean what you say, and you help us save people, then we'll keep our ears open for any tell of this Shigaraki Tamura person. Thank you. With that, Viridian vanished into the night. Tsukachi Naomasa smiled softly as he reunited the last missing child with their family. Viridian's information had been right on the money, and the vigilante himself had shown up and kept the kids safe until police arrived. He was starting to think that this offer might not be such a bad thing. Unfortunately, it wasn't a call he was allowed to make. You called? Tsuragami stepped into his office, nose likely picking up on Viridian's unfamiliar scent. The dog-headed man kept a steady gaze on his subordinate. Yes, sir. It's about Viridian. Naomasa sighed as he gestured for his boss to close the door behind him. It took an hour and a half to fully explain the situation, along with the new information that the vigilante had never once used his quirk during his nightly activities. The police chief sat for a very long time, thinking over the information that the detective had provided him with. This is quite the conundrum. He hummed. Should we work with him, sir? The information he provided to me is what got those 36 children home safely. Well, it's not like trying to capture him has gotten anyone anywhere. He sighed as he scratched the back of his ear. All right. Any information he shares with you is shared with me. That is your condition. And I would like to meet with him myself. Naomasa smiled in relief. I'll arrange the meeting. Moldy broccoli, guys. Viridian's got a webpage now. Havenome, yeah, I saw. Apparently he's getting really popular. Nobody's really seen him aside from the people he's rescued or arrested. Dragonina dress. There are some pics online now. Looks like a ninja. Noiscardily. I actually found some Viridian merch at my local hero store today. Moldy broccoli. What? I must have IT. Forsaken boy. Isn't he just a vigilante, though? I mean, why would a vigilante have merch? Noiscardily. No idea. Maybe someone mistook him for a hero? Hold on, I'll send a pic. Noiscardily. Viridian_search.jpg. Moldy broccoli. Wow. It's his vigilante outfit. Forsaken boy. How do you know that? It looks just like a Halloween costume to me. Moldy broccoli. He saved me once, a few months ago. I saw Viridian in action, and it was so cool. Gif anime boy. I saw him, too. Dragonina dress. How do you know he didn't just buy his vigilante outfit from that same costume store? Straight face. Moldy broccoli. You did. Dragonina dress. And I'm ignored. Gay anime boy. Yeah. I was kidnapped a while back and was held with a bunch of other kids. We really thought we were going to die, but Viridian came by and saved our buttes before they could kill us or ship us off somewhere. The police came in just 10 minutes or so later. I think he tipped off the cops, because they sure as hell didn't find us on their own. Either way, I owe Viridian my life. I think my whole family's a Viridian supporter, now. 3. Moldy broccoli, yes. Our cult is growing. 3. Dragonine address. Cult? Moldy broccoli. The cult of Viridian. Noiscardily, sigh. Noiscardily has changed the chat name to Cult of Viridian. Moldy broccoli, yes. Thank you, NOI. Gay fanemy boy, I'm gonna log out. My bro's calling me for dinner. Bye. Kenji scratched his head, blowing the black bangs out of his eyes irritably. Maybe he should spike up his hair? It'd probably look cool. He sighed as he closed out of the chat. Kenji! Dinner! His brother poked his head into his bedroom. Come on, bro. You've been glued to that computer for hours. Aren't you hungry? Sorry, I just wanted to. Looking up stuff about Viridian again? Ijiro grinned easily. He's so manly. I know. Everyone's talking about him, and since there are only about 6 photos and videos of him online, some people have taken to drawing him based off descriptions of his rescues. Kenji bounced in his chair like the excitable 12-year-old he was. He's really getting popular, isn't he? Ijiro tilted his head. Yeah. He's got a fan page now. There's several thousand members, and it's growing by the day. For a guy without a license and no calling card, he's really getting a lot of attention. That's because he helps the people that really need it. Kenji smiled. He's even been seen patrolling Tokyo, Kyoto, Hosu, and Mizudafu. I heard a rumor that he patrols the south side of Mizudafu, too. You mean the lawless area? Ijiro winced. Man, he's got guts to patrol there. You should have seen him. Kenji became quiet as he remembered. They were going to kill this one kid. They were going to kill me for protecting that girl. But then Viridian appeared out of nowhere and saved me. He missed his brother's flinch at the accidental slip. He shook as he stared down the barrel of the gun. So this was how he was going to die. He was only 12. He didn't have a hardening quirk like his brother. He couldn't stop the bullet that was aimed firmly between his eyes. Kenji heard the gun pee and several of the other kids whimpered. He wouldn't be the first kid killed for stepping out of line, but he really hoped he'd be the last. He closed his eyes as he waited. Bang. Suddenly, he realized that there was no pain. Was death really this painless? You okay, kid? He opened his eyes and saw bright green staring back at him from what looked like a ninja mask. The man held him firmly in his arms and, You saved me? Yep. The man grinned. Name's Viridian. Don't worry. The police are almost here. It's over, kid. You're going to be just fine. All of you are. Viridian gently set him down on the ground. You're safe. It's over. I'll protect you. For the first time in his life, he felt like he understood why All Might said, I am here. When All Might rescued people, he said his catchphrase and you just knew that you would be okay. Viridian's words, I'll protect you, sounded the same in his ears. It rung with a surety and truth that nearly left him quaking in relief. Because now he knew that nothing would hurt him. He'd be safe. He was safe. And suddenly, as he watched Viridian take down the criminals that had been their captors for the last 2 months, he realized something. All Might was a symbol. A ward against evil and a mantra people chanted to make themselves feel safe. But Viridian was more than that, somehow. He was more concrete. More real. Viridian was his hero. Kenji? Ijiro's gentle voice shook him out of his flashback. Sorry. Just remembering the rescue. Viridian was so cool. He smiled softly. No worries, bro. His brother came over and gently pulled him into a hug. I'm just glad you're safe and home. Thanks, AG. He smiled into his older brother's shoulder. Ijiro, Kenji, if you boys don't get your butts down here, I'm going to let your father eat all the dessert. Come on, best get down there before Dad eats everything. Ijiro grinned, showing off sharp, shark-like teeth. I hope I meet Viridian again. Izuku would admit that he wasn't expecting a phone call during his lunch break at school. Even less so from his vigilante phone, which, thankfully, he'd had the foresight to add the voice changer to. Hello. He answered. It wasn't a number he was familiar with, and Neo Mesa and Eraserhead both knew to reach out through the group chat by now, but he'd only given this number to them. Hello. Viridian, yes. Who's asking? I am Tsuragami Kenji, Mizudafu Chief of Police. Oh, he'd really attracted the higher-up's attention this time. Tsuragami-san. He smirked, using a confident and laid-back tone. To what do I owe the pleasure? Detective Tsukachi has told me about your interesting proposition. I'm open to negotiation. Please come by the station at your earliest convenience. And how do I know you're not just going to arrest and unmask me? Izuku raised an eyebrow, even though he knew the man couldn't see him. Though he wondered how he must look right now, sitting on the junior high rooftop holding a serious conversation with the chief of police, not that anyone would know that, unless they heard him call the man's name earlier. I assure you, we have no intentions of doing so. Bring in Eraserhead, and allow me to keep my weapons on me and we'll talk. He heard a very heavy sigh on the other line. Very well. Great. Then I'll see you this afternoon. Izuku shut the old flip phone, ancient technology he'd salvaged from the scrap heap, and pocketed it again and turned around to go back inside before he was late to class, only to find Bakugo there. Hey Deku. Who are you talking to? It's not like a useless Deku like you has any friends. Bakugo shoved him roughly, and Izuku rolled his eyes as it failed to so much as make him stumble. Believe it or not, Bakugo, I actually have a life. And it doesn't revolve around you. He nimbly dodged the explosive punch from the blonde, hands in his pockets. Think you're so high and mighty just 'cause you've got good grades? You still thinking you can be a effing hero, Deku? Izuku's expression darkened. I know it's an impossible dream, asshat. He enjoyed the flinch from the blonde. But I'm working tooth and nail to make that dream a reality. I will get into UA. Just FING watch me. And as you watch me, remember that every time you've beaten me down, every time you've called me useless, every time you've tried to crush my dreams, I got back up. And I persevered. Because I will become a goddamned hero, even if it FING kills me. Because unlike you, I don't do it for me. I do it for the people I can save. He then flipped over Bakugo and his cronies before casually making his way to class. Neither Izuku nor Bakugo noticed the young winged hero that sat atop the roof, watching the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. To say Viridian was nervous as he approached the police station in broad daylight in full vigilante gear was like saying a shark's bite was a little nip. He watched as several people on the street looked at him oddly, likely because he was dressed like a ninja. One kid perked up and ran over to him, dodging his mother's hand as he ran. Hey! You're that cool new hero everyone's talking about on the internet. Viridian, right? Can I please have your autograph? Viridian blinked down at the kid, who looked no older than people knew about him. Maybe he should take some time to browse the internet. He thought it was just the villains and police that knew him. I'm a vigilante, kid. Not a hero. He crossed his arms. No. You save people, which makes you a hero. You save everyone. He argued stubbornly and held out his book expectantly. A few people whispered excitedly as they pulled out their phones. Damn it, he couldn't be in but and just refuse, now. Viridian sighed before gesturing for the boy to hand it over, which he did with an excited grin. You want to be a hero, kid? He asked, and the boy nodded excitedly. Yeah. My quirk lets me climb anything. He grinned. For a moment, Viridian saw a younger version of himself. An eager young boy who had dreams of being a hero. He could have been this kid, had he been blessed with a quirk at 4. I'm sure you'll make a great hero someday. Just don't use your quirk out and about without a license, you hear? Yeah. He took the book back with a starry-eyed grin, which made Viridian uncomfortable. Thank you, Viridian. He smiled as he ran off. Viridian stared after the boy for a moment before a familiar presence came up behind him. A little hypocritical of you. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow. I told him not to use his quirk without a license. I have never broken that law. Viridian smirked back up at Eraserhead, who shook his head fondly. You aren't much taller than him, you know. Seriously, don't call me little, damn it. I was just saying that you're a bit short. I'm not little. He snapped, and the older man blinked in surprise for a moment before his hands moved in a placating manner. Geez, what are you, Edward Elric? Short. He growled out. Fine. Fine, you're perfectly average height for a man your age. Thank you. Viridian huffed as he stared at the station doors again. So, are we going to glare at the door all day, or are we going in for that meeting of yours? The one you insisted I come along for? He shot Viridian an unimpressed look. Because I know that you, at least, won't let them kill me if it comes down to it. Plus, if worse comes to worse, I can always rip off my mask and reveal that I'm a 15-year-old brat and put them into shock that way while I make my escape. Then Shoota's sure to make sure they won't hurt me. It's a meeting. Just how paranoid are you? He gave Viridian an incredulous look. It's not paranoia if they're really out to get you. Viridian corrected as he headed inside, leaving the hero staring after him in mild concern. The cops at the front desk eyed him warily. Hi. I've got a meeting with Chief Tsuragami. Name's Viridian. He gave them a sheet-eating grin. Even if they couldn't see it, he knew they felt it, as they paled drastically. You have too much fun messing with people. Eraserhead sighed, shaking his head. Think of it as training. Training? For what? Ah, Viridian, there you are. Tsukachi came around the corner, and Viridian grinned. We were starting to worry that you wouldn't show. I had a few things to tie up before I came down. Like school. Right. Follow me. True to his word, Viridian was neither searched nor restrained. He was led to a comfortable-looking break room with plenty of exits where Tsuragami sat with a cup of coffee. The vigilante graciously took a cup for himself, checking it thoroughly to make sure it wasn't tampered with, before he carefully pulled up his mask enough to drink some. I've heard a lot about you, Viridian. I must say that you are by far the most elusive vigilante we've ever had. He shrugged as he pulled his mask back into place, so his voice changer would do its work. I'm just an easy guy to miss. You've got good coffee here. I was always told station coffee was sheet. It usually is, which is why I always bring my own brew. Tsuragami laughed. Ah, I should have figured as such. So, down to business. I understand you want a partnership with us. Yes. I want to help people. It's why I've always wanted to become a hero. Yet you're a vigilante instead? No hero school would let me in. I failed all their exams. He worded his answers carefully. He knew that Tsukachi was in here to act as a lie detector. If he told a lie, he'd alert his boss immediately. With your skills, that's hard to believe. He shook his head. I assure you, I was anything but skilled back then. I cried myself to sleep as a child when I realized my dreams were beyond my reach. Instead, I went to a trade school and tried making support items. But that wasn't enough. I needed to help people. So I became a vigilante to help more directly. He caught the subtle nod from Tsukachi. What is it that you want from this? Shigaraki Tamura? Tsuragami-san, you must understand. I've seen him do some terrible things. Irreversible things. I can't tell you how I know this, but if he's left to run about, countless lives will be lost. Tsukachi blinked in surprise. I'm afraid you're going to have to be a tad more specific. Viridian knew that he was a little unnerved at his own quirk's reaction. He imagined that he normally didn't get people who were that certain about future information. I've seen him kill people for no reason other than to sate his bloodlust. I've seen him murder mothers and leave their infants sobbing in their cold, dead arms to starve. He's killed people very close to me, and I have reason to believe that he's planning something big. As in, destroy the world as we know it, big. Anything more specific than big? Tsuragami's eyes narrowed. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to prove my theories to you at this time. Perhaps after we gather more information, I'll be able to explain more in depth. The detective shuddered as he nodded to his boss, whose expression became grave. I suppose we've got a common foe. He mulled over things for a bit as they continued talking. Moving on from that, what can you offer us in this partnership? Information. I'm very well informed, and have many ways of getting information that heroes and police both would struggle to obtain. If we form this partnership, are you willing to share your identity with us? Just us three? Tsuragami asked. Unfortunately, not at this time. Viridian shook his head. And what if we had ways of getting you licensed? Eraserhead cut in, and Viridian's head whipped up in shock so quickly that he nearly spilled the coffee. He had to have heard that wrong. A hero license. Eraserhead smirked. That can't, he stuttered and blinked in absolute shock. There was no FING way that it could be that DMN easy. You're the number one vigilante in Japan. Tsukachi deadpanned. And you think you wouldn't pass the license exam for heroes? As long as a current hero recommends you, you can take it, even if you didn't go to a hero school. Since Eraserhead here spoke up, it sounds like he's willing to sponsor you in this. I am. It'll make things easier for the both of us. Viridian's head was spinning. Hold on. I need some time to think about this. You sort of just broke my whole worldview, okay? He ignored the chuckles from Tsukachi and Eraserhead, as well as the amused smirk from Tsuragami. Was there a reason to take it? Well, yeah. He'd be a licensed hero, just like he'd always dreamed. But he'd probably have to reveal his identity, which would complicate things, as he didn't think they'd let a 15-year-old become a hero without a fight. But if he was able to make it, then he'd be able to bring down the league outright and forego the entire student fiasco. If he forewent the student fiasco, then there was no guarantee that he'd be able to make it to the USJ incident, which would result in the death of one Azui Tsuyu and near death of Aizawa Shoyuta. Plus, he'd be able to do so as Midoriya Izuku, and not Viridian, who could remain a vigilante and still help the police and heroes through information gathering and fighting. And if they knew that Viridian was no older than a first year, they'd surely start keeping him from things that they deemed too dangerous. But he couldn't give those reasonings to them. So what could he say that'd sound believable? I might take you up on that offer, but not at this time. For the time being, I think I'm more valuable to you as a vigilante who can get in and out of areas that heroes and police can't. Oh, like? Tsuragami prompted. A few underground information and black market networks that I know of. He smirked, leaning back against the couch. He pulled up his mask a bit to take another sip of coffee, allowing them to see said fanged smirk. I'll agree to our partnership then. So long as you stick to the laws, that is. And tell us what your quirk is. Viridian pulled his mask back down so he could speak. He hummed as he stroked his chin, used to the stubble he had in the future. Let's see, do I tell the truth and break you? Or simply leave it as a mystery? He wondered aloud, internally laughing at their offended looks. Please, humor us. Eraserhead deadpanned. Fine. Viridian grinned. My quirk? Is nada. They blinked, not understanding. I'm quirkless. I'm practically invisible to the laws. That's why I'm your ace. He watched with no small amount of glee as the information settled into their brains like water in a rock before freezing and expanding and breaking their minds. Why mean, all this time? Eraserhead stuttered, which was honestly what made Viridian lose it and start laughing. He's lying, right? Tsuragami looked over to Tsukachi, who shook his head. Don't tell me that Japan's number one vigilante is? He's telling the truth. He paused for a moment. That drag trading ring you busted a few months ago, the one with the quirk-breaking drags. His eyes widened in realization. Doesn't do shit to a quirkless guy. Should have seen the looks on their faces when they got me with it, and it did nothing. He let his smirk drop. Of course, I completely understand if you'd like to reject this offer. I know things are a bit different when my quirkless status is taken into account. He puzzled at the frowns of the three men. Illogical. This changes nothing. Eraserhead shook his head. Quirkless or not, you still ran circles around us. Wow, that sounded like it physically pained him to admit. Viridian bit back a snicker to spare the man some dignity. All right then. Tsuragami stood up, shaking himself out of his stupor. He held out a hand. Welcome to the team, Viridian. I'll put out the word to stop chasing you. You'll be an official informant for us, now. Really? So no more late-night chases? Viridian took his hand with a firm shake. I have to say, I'm going to miss our midnight games. He sighed wistfully. Well, I'm going to enjoy the quieter nights. Tsukachi stated, and Eraserhead nodded resolutely. You two are no fun. Viridian pouted, causing Tsuragami to chuckle. You've certainly done a good job keeping my men active and on their toes. Maybe we should have you run a training camp or two sometime. He pondered, making Viridian grin, and the other two men pale. Sounds like a blast. I'll look forward to working with you, Viridian. Here's my number. Use it. Viridian walked out of that police station with a grin that would have made the future show you to shudder. World, here I come. Cult of Viridian chat. Gay Fanime Boy is online. Gay Fanime Boy, guys. Did you see? Viridian made a public appearance in Muzudafu. Moldy Broccoli, no way. Show me. Gay Fanime Boy, just check out his fan page. There's a ton of photos and videos there. A lot of people saw him go into the police station, so maybe he's working with them now? Dragonine address, DMN, he's really public? That seems unlike him. Noiscardily, he looks distinctly uncomfortable in such a populated area. I'm willing to bet that the police asked him to come in for some reason, maybe the kidnapping case he helped with. He's gaining a lot of clout online, so they may be trying to recruit him, or turn him into a legal hero instead of a vigilante. Barbie's is that really possible? I thought you had to go to a hero school to become a hero? Moldy Broccoli, I think it's possible. I mean, Hawks didn't attend a hero school, right? Ehavenome, it's an old law that nobody bothered to update. It's left over from before the hero schools were established. If a licensed hero recommends someone who's been apprehending villains on their own, then they can take the hero licensing exam. It was originally the only way to become licensed. Noiscardily, I think I remember reading about that. The first heroes were given the title by the government, and when they came across young hero hopefuls, they trained them and then recommended them for their own licenses. Ehavenome, right, but after the hero schools were established, it sort of just fell out of practice. It was easier to train a group of hero hopefuls all together and produce multiple heroes than train them one-on-one with a licensed hero for months or years. The Kakisali, I really doubt PPL realize this is a thing. Once someone fails the high school heroics entrance exams, they pretty much take that as a closed door and find a different career. Moldy Broccoli, so it's possible to enter the heroics field even as an adult? Ehavenome, yep. But that's only if they can find a hero to speak up for them. Gay Fanime Boy, I doubt Viridian'll have trouble with that. He's amazing. Noiscardily, either way, now we have good pictures and videos of our favorite vigilante. Laughing face. Guess what my new screensaver is? AN continued. I'm working on Swan Dive, and I'll try to get that next chapter up tomorrow, so look forward to that. Laughing face. As it's written right now, Chapter 21 of Swan Dive should see the UA entrance exams. Winky face. So look forward to that, K? Though I may go back in and write some stuff with Nemuri. Just so you guys know, I was going to put her and Inko together before Chapter 9 happened. Which Chapter 9 was planned from the start, 'cause I'm a heartless beach. Stay safe out there, everyone. And please enjoy the chapter. Also, if anyone has fan art of my stories, I'd love to see it. I can't really draw worth sheet, so seeing my writing come to life on a page is super inspiring to me. I'll even feature your artwork on the relevant chapter for the sites that permit it. This chapter has been edited and reposted as of Sunday, July 12, 2020. Viridian looked around the office with an appreciative gaze. Naomasa had good taste. He'd been in here a few times before, by sneaking in through the window to leave notes and coffee, but this was his first time in the room as a guest. It was painted in neutral colors with darker accents, giving the place a warm, cozy feel. The couch pushed up against the wall looked well-loved and comfortable, while the rug had a few coffee spills. There were 6 desks and a separate door that led to Naomasa's private office, which the man rarely used. Nice place. He smirked beneath his mask. Don't act like it's your first time in here. Naomasa huffed. I can't remember how many times you've broken into my office. 27. Viridian replied offhandedly. Someone nearby whistled. Sorry, didn't mean to startle ya. The man had light brown hair and yellow gold eyes. Viridian spied a monkey's tail curling excitedly behind the man, likely his quirk. He looked a little closer. His hairline spread a little below what most people would consider normal, and his upper lip protruded very slightly, indicating sharp canines. His shoes were custom-made, likely for the Hand like feet he sported. He had a monkey quirk. I'm Tyragun, but you can call me Tyro, he grinned, showing off the fangs that Viridian had already suspected him of possessing. Naomasa sighed. Tyragun, this is Viridian, he's going to be working with us from now on, so please be nice. Viridian. As in the vigilante Viridian. Like the guy the entire country's been after for over half a year. Viridian leaned back against the wall with an easy smirk. I see you've heard of me. Oh, I like him. Tyragun grinned. You're a tough guy to find. A feminine voice came around the corner. This is Ikur. She and Tyragun are part of my personal team. Ikibara, Sakamura, and Sansa are the 3 remaining members, but you'll meet them later today. I already know Sansa. He's the one with the cat quirk. Viridian said offhandedly as he studied the new arrival. Ikur was a very pretty woman. Her platinum blonde hair appeared to be natural, if those ice blue eyes had anything to say about it. Likely of foreign descent. European, most probably. Her build was slender, but she had a sharpness about her. She seemed hyper-aware of her surroundings, and, were those hearing aids? No, those were sound filters. Custom-made for people with very sensitive hearing due to their quirks. Super hearing then? Not necessarily enhanced senses all around, as she didn't seem to flinch at the copious amount of light in the room. Her ears were slightly bigger than the average person, but it wasn't overly noticeable. She fidgeted ever so slightly with her fingers, as if she was trying not to snap them. More than likely, she had some sort of echolocation-based quirk, then. You can stop staring, you know. She huffed. Sorry. Viridian chuckled. It's a habit of mine trying to figure out someone's quirk. Oh. Naomasa raised an eyebrow. And what do you think? Tyragun, yours is obviously a monkey quirk. And Iku, yours is a bit harder. Likely something to do with sound, perhaps something along the lines of echolocation? That's my best guess given the information I have, but I could be way off. The 3 were staring at him. What? Viridian asked. Their staring was unnerving. I've said all of 2 sentences to you, and you figured out my quirk in less than 5 minutes? She gaped. You were right, my quirk is called sonar. You're a little too good at that. Naomasa decided. That's a very useful skill. Why thank you. Viridian grinned. Quirk analysis is a hobby of mine. I'd say that's more than just a hobby. Tyragun chimed in. Perhaps you could help us analyze criminals out in the field too. Naomasa suggested. Sure if you want. It's nothing too extravagant. Like I said, it's a hobby, something I've been doing since I was a kid. All right, now here's what we know about our current case. As it turned out, bringing Viridian onto the team was more helpful than Naomasa had originally thought. The man had a wicked fast mind, and could piece together a case from the barest details. The man wasn't bothered by bodies either, as he saw when he brought Viridian to a fresh crime scene. The vigilante hadn't been fazed in the slightest by the blood or smell of a corpse. It was honestly a little worrying. His team worked well with the vigilante, too. And if Naomasa thought Viridian's information network was good beforehand, well, let's just say that he was glad the man was on their side. Another case closed. Viridian leaned back against the brick wall as he watched a few of the officers haul away a murderer. He'd been working with Naomasa and his team for a couple of weeks now, and he was finding himself enjoying the time spent around the detective and his team. People had started to notice the vigilante helping out the police, and the detective wondered if the other man had seen the blogs lately. Still, not everyone was happy about Japan's most wanted vigilante suddenly being untouchable, as if he'd been touchable beforehand. The man was far too good at slipping away. He tried his best to stay out of sight while on patrol. Just in case, he urged the other man to patrol alongside Eraserhead. He'd made it abundantly clear that he was untouchable in Mizudafu. Other areas of Japan would still try to bring him in, not that Naomasa thought they could. He'd heard from Toshinori himself that Viridian had given even him the slip. That was no easy feat. If even All Might, the world's #1 hero, couldn't catch Viridian, then it's no wonder that Tsuragami had been allowed to bring him onto the team. Tsukachi still wasn't entirely sure how Tsuragami had managed that one and kept his badge, but he'd learned that his dog-headed superior had connections. I still have to file the paperwork. Naomasa groaned, rubbing his neck. God, even just the thought of paperwork made his hands cramp with phantom pains. Higher solve rate meant he got paperwork faster. He wasn't sure if he was grateful to the vigilante or not. I mean, this is for you, but I can go grab you some coffee? He sent said vigilante a glare for a moment before sighing with a tired smile. I've still got the grounds you gave me last week. The offer's appreciated though. You coming back with me? The vigilante had been on edge all day, and it was starting to make him edgy. He'd seen Eraserhead get like this once or twice, called it the hero's gut, an instinct experienced heroes developed over the course of their career. Many countries even accepted it as a valid reason to grant things like search warrants and the like to police. If Viridian had a bad gut feeling, then he was worried for him. It'd be safer for him to come back to the office with him. I would, but I'm going to patrol a bit before Eraser takes over. Something about today's got me on edge. Be careful, Masa. So it was a gut feeling. You too, Viridian. He sighed. Hopefully the man would be careful. Message me tonight so I know you aren't dead. Passage. As if I'd die so easily. Ye of little faith, detective. What's the worst thing that could happen? Viridian laughed as he shoved his hands in his pockets and casually strolled away. There was only 2 hours before Eraserhead started his shift, but maybe the detective should call him in early? He couldn't help but feel like Viridian jinxed it. I fed up. It wasn't something that Viridian liked to admit. He'd FNG jinxed himself. What's the worst thing that could happen? I asked. Well, apparently running into motherfucking Stain. He'd been trying to steer clear of the alleged hero killer. He knew how dangerous the guy was. But somehow Stain found him. Now, Viridian was hurt badly and left bleeding out in some back alleyway. He had no idea how, but he thought he might have managed to impress Stain enough to keep him alive. At the very least, the hero killer didn't come back to finish him off. And Viridian was fairly certain that there was no permanent damage done, or at least, there would be none if he could manage to get out of this mess alive. But the hero killer had, accidentally, broken his phone when he'd sliced Viridian's side open. And he was losing way too much blood. He couldn't even stand, let alone contact Naomasa. Eraserhead wouldn't start his shift for another half hour, and by that point, he'd be dead. He struggled to keep his breathing calm. I can't afford to die here. He heard footsteps down the alleyway. For a moment, he feared that Stain had changed his mind and returned to finish the job. Holy shit! He groaned when he felt something press painfully against his injury. He blinked a few times to clear his vision. It was a kid? No, he knew this guy. He was a young hero. Hawks. Yeah. Hold still. You're hurt pretty badly. I'll fly you to a hospital, it'll be faster than an ambulance. He carefully scooped Viridian up in his arms, keeping pressure on the wound. Hospitals were bad. Hospitals would unmask him and ruin his chances at UA at getting to Shigaraki. He wouldn't be able to make it to the USJ incident in time, and everything would be for nothing. The vigilante took a deep shuddering breath as he made his decision. No hospital. He ground out through bloodied teeth. The winged hero paused for a moment to look at him incredulously. I can't just let you die. I can stitch it up myself. Please. He looked up at the blonde, and he could see the youngster's eyes flicker in indecision. I need you to trust me. Why am I listening to you? He muttered to himself. Fine. Where are we going? He spread his impressive wingspan and took to the skies. Viridian internally hooped at the feeling, though it was dampened by the blood loss. Take me to Dagoba Beach. Viridian forced out between gasps of pain. Tell anyone where I live and I'll pluck you. He added as an afterthought. That's a great way to thank the guy who's saving your life. Hawks huffed back, unamused. I'm kind of in a bit of pain here, if you hadn't noticed, so please excuse my rudeness. Viridian hissed. Fine. He tightened his grip as he altered course. If Viridian liked hopping across the rooftops, then he loved flying. It was the most freeing experience he'd ever had. He smiled under his mask, and couldn't help the light laughter that bubbled up in his chest, even if it hurt like a beach. Takami Kigo, better known as the pro-hero Hawks, looked down with his own soft smile, though it turned to a concerned frown when he realized how much blood the vigilante had lost. He wasn't sure what to expect when he'd found the famed vigilante Viridian bleeding out in an alley. At first, he hadn't even believed that it was Japan's most elusive shadow hero, as they called him online. But the hero killer himself had found Kigo and pointed him in the direction of the alley. "I'm not here for you, Hawks. I left Viridian in that alleyway back there. Don't let him die, he's got potential as a hero." Before the winged man could do anything, the hero killer had vanished. If Kigo was being honest, he hadn't believed Stain when he said he left Viridian bleeding out in an alley, but here he was saving the stubborn JRK who refused to go to a hospital. Viridian was certainly an enigma. He was one of the most wanted men in all of Japan, the most wanted of all the vigilantes in the country, and yet he was also amongst the most peaceful. If Kigo didn't know any better, he'd assume the man a hero, not a vigilante. And recently, all the heroes in Mizudafu got an alert from the Mizudafu PD that Viridian was now working with them. It was a first in a long time. The fact that he was elusive enough that the cops thought it was better to pull him onto their team spoke volumes. Because that hadn't happened since Quirks came about. The last time the cops had to ask for help from a vigilante consistently enough that they formed a partnership was the formation of the profession of hero. He snapped back to reality when he realized they'd arrived. "Honestly, you live in a dump?" Kigo asked as he carefully landed where the vigilante specified. "Beggars can't be choosers, you know." Viridian shot back. "Not all of us are lucky enough to have families to go back to." He said the last part quietly, and Kigo was sure he wasn't meant to hear it. Either way, he filed the information away for later. He carefully followed the vigilante's instructions, navigating an extremely specific pathway through the mountains of trash until he came to a clearing. There was a fire pit set a safe distance from an old beat-up camper. He really does live here. He went inside the camper and set the man down on the bed inside. The place was actually kind of nice, considering everything in there was likely salvaged from the junkyard outside. Though he idly wondered if letting the man heal up in here with such a gaping wound was a good idea. It couldn't be sanitary. "I've scrubbed the place with bleach, don't look so apprehensive." Viridian scoffed, words a little slurred from blood loss. "Sit down, make yourself a cup of tea. Yes, the stove works. I've got to get this stitched up." Kigo was about to protest. Surely he didn't mean to stitch himself up without any kind of pain medicine, but Viridian had already started stitching the wound closed with the kind of nonchalance and precision that came from years of experience. The hero turned a little green, despite himself. How was he doing that so easily? Kigo hated stitches. "I'm done," Viridian finally said. From what Kigo could see, he was quite pale. "You need to stay hydrated." Kigo handed him a bottle of water he'd found in the fridge, which actually worked, which was shocking. He hadn't expected electricity in a literal dump. "Not gonna arrest me?" Viridian pet an eyebrow. Or at least, Kigo assumed he was ping an eyebrow. "Mizudafu PD put out the word that you're on our side now." "Yeah, something tells me Nao Mesa wouldn't be too happy if you brought me in injured and all tied up." Viridian chuckled. "You mean Detective Tsukachi? Why was he on a first-name basis with the lead detective in Mizudafu?" "Yep. Since I'm an informant for the Mizudafu PD, they've stuck me with Nao Mesa's team. I've been helping them on investigations and stuff. You know, since they technically can't arrest me, as I've never used a quirk during my vigilante work." Viridian was smirking. Kigo was sure of it. Still, the man never used his quirk? He had to be lying. Kigo was pretty damn sure the vigilante had some kind of evasive quirk he had to. "So why trust me with your humble abode?" Kigo changed the topic. "Like I had a choice? Between you or the hospital, I think I'll sooner take my chances with you. The hospital would likely drag me just to get the mask off." Most vigilantes aren't that protective of their identities, especially those who don't need to worry about being arrested. Most vigilantes don't plan to do something with their civilian persona. "Oh, and why would being a vigilante impact that? Don't tell me you want to join the cops." No. I'm going to become a goddamned hero. Viridian snapped back. Kigo must have hit a nerve, because the man before him instantly shut his mouth, like he'd said something forbidden. I hate pain. I should not have said that. You technically already are a hero, you know. Shut up. Viridian glared, causing Kigo to raise his hands in surrender. I'm not a hero. I'm a vigilante. There's a difference. Kigo decided that tonight was not the night to argue the point. Look, you need to get some rest. I've got nowhere to be. Viridian gave a snort. The number 3 hero has nowhere to be? Somehow I find that hard to believe. You interest me. I can take a couple days to myself. My sidekicks can handle things while I'm gone. Fine. Not like I'm in the state to kick you out anyways. Viridian waved his hand. Just don't go snooping or anything. And don't touch the mask. Viridian groaned as he woke. The previous night's events slowly trickled into his mind as someone opened the door to his camper. His first instinct was to bolt upright, but a sharp pain had him immediately regretting that decision. Oh, stay down, would ya? You're badly hurt. Hawks reprimanded lightly. What are you, my mother? I'm the hero who saved your life. He replied irritably as he placed his hands on his hips. The plastic bag from the convenience store hung on his wrist. What's with the bag? You're out of food. Hawks replied like it was the simplest thing in the world. Don't think I didn't notice how light you were when I carried you home 2 days ago. 2 days ago? Sheet. He'd missed school. Fucker. Yeah, you've been out. Not that I can blame you, that is. Hawks shrugged as he casually restocked Viridian's fridge with more food than the vigilante had seen in his life. How am I supposed to eat all that? You know, most people have 3 meals a day. Most people also don't live in a dump. Viridian replied. By the way, do you have a phone on you? I need to make a call. Don't you have one? Hawks questioned with a raised eyebrow. Viridian fished the remains of his old phone blood-stained and battered. It needed to be either salvaged or completely scrapped. He should be able to salvage it, though, if he could find the right pieces. Right. Here, just make it fast. Viridian took the hero's phone with a curious look. He'd always had to buy phones online to avoid quirkless discrimination and unfair price spikes, especially with electronics, so he always got the cheapest models. Hero phones were expensive and incredibly durable. They could find a signal just about anywhere. He marveled at it for a moment before typing in the Muzutafu PD's number as he didn't have Neo Mesa or Eraserhead's numbers memorized. Muzutafu Police Department, this is Suki. Hey, Suki. He greeted casually. It's Viridian, think you could patch me through to Neo Mesa? There was a long pause before she sighed. Yeah. Thanks. He waited exactly 2.5 rings before the detective himself picked up. Viridian. There was a clear worry in his voice that made the vigilante smile. Masa, how are you doing? You haven't been answering us. Are you okay? My phone was kinda trashed, but I'm alive, so I just wanted to let you know that. He felt Hawk's phone vibrate, indicating a new mission or message. Anyhow, I'm borrowing someone else's phone, so I gotta go. I'm good though. Give me a few weeks and I'll be back out there in no time. He grinned. Love ya, Masa. A few weeks. Viridian he hung up on the detective and handed the phone back to a baffled hero. Was that a good idea to hang up on the detective? I do it all the time. He grinned back. Masa's used to it by now. Right. Hawk sighed as he looked at whatever message had come through. My sidekicks can handle that. He shrugged as he pocketed the device. So what do you want for dinner? I'll cook. You can cook. Viridian raised an impressed eyebrow. Hawks didn't dignify that with a response. Viridian sighed as he looked over at his new roommate. It had been 10 days since he'd gotten injured, and his wound was healing nicely, thanks to Hawks. I brought you some more food, Hawks said as he set down the bag of groceries. Seriously, what the hell did you eat before I came along? Your skin and bones, and your fridge was empty. I was working on that issue, mostly. Right. Hawks didn't look convinced. Viridian stared at him for a moment. For the last week or so, Hawks had been flitting in and out of his little compound, checking up on him and bringing him food and even sometimes cooking him meals. Sometimes they talked, other times they just sat there and enjoyed one another's company. It was so weird. "What do you want?" Viridian finally asked. It had been bugging him for the last few days. He'd expected something, but so far, Hawks hadn't seemed to have told anyone about where he lived. Which was a good thing, because while the Muzutafu PD liked him, that didn't mean the Hero Commission would think the same. Plus, there were other police forces that'd love to fillet him. Tokyo PD came to mind. "I don't really want anything from you, I suppose. I just want you to keep doing what you've been doing. You do good." Hawks finally answered after a moment. He held his cup of coffee with both hands as he stared at the quickly setting sun. "Come again? You're not like the other vigilantes. You genuinely want to help people. I think that's admirable. You're a hero in your own way. I just don't understand why you'd subject yourself to this." Hawks gestured to the mountains of trash surrounding them. "You make it sound like I've got a choice." Viridian chuckled. "Someone like you? Why not become a legal hero?" Viridian snorted. "You think I'd be here if that was an option right now?" He resolutely shoved away the memory of Eraserhead offering to sponsor him. It wasn't an option right now. It wasn't. Because everything was riding on him killing Shigaraki, and his best shot was Yue. "I'd vouch for you, you know." Viridian stared at the hero. "If I were to fail, or become a villain, your reputation would be in tatters. You're not that kind of man. You haven't even known me for a month, and you've never even seen my face. How can you possibly know the kind of man I am?" Viridian glared. "I like to think I've got good instincts." Hawks smiled as he leaned back against the old repaired lawn chair before the fire. The light of the flames danced in his eyes, and Viridian sighed. "I can't believe I'm doing this." He reached up and loosened his mask, causing Hawk's eyes to widen in surprise. "I can't take the hero exam." He pulled the mask off. "I'm only 15. The hero blinked in shock. He stared, open-mouthed at the child before him. Now that is a shock. He laughed in disbelief. The most elusive vigilante in Japan is a 15-year-old kid. "I'm going to try out for Yue's hero course in a few months." Izuku smiled, holding out a hand. "Midoriya Izuku." Hawks smirked and took the proffered hand. "Takami Kigo. You can just call me Kigo. Then call me Izuku." "So why is a kid living in a trash dump as a vigilante?" Kigo raised an eyebrow. "Because it was strange when I thought you were an adult, but it's downright worrisome knowing you're a kid." "I'm not a kid." Izuku protested with a glare. He faltered when Kigo raised an eyebrow. "Oh, maybe I am technically a kid, but..." He sighed and ran his hand through his hair. "I'm Quirkless, okay? If you know anything about how we're treated by society, then you won't need any further explanation." Kigo stared at Izuku for a long moment, processing that the most wanted vigilante didn't even have a quirk. Then he was so sure about that stealth quirk. He muttered before speaking up. "Why not stay with me then?" "I can't. It's too dangerous." Izuku protested immediately. "I've got a lot of very dangerous people after me, as Viridian, and if word got out about you helping a vigilante, like I care about that." Kigo rolled his eyes. "Look, Izuku. I'm a hero, first and foremost. Meaning I help people. And whether you admit it or not, you need some help." Okay, this was obviously not working the way Izuku needed it to work. He had to stay as far under the radar as Izuku as possible until Yue. He couldn't risk anything blowing this shot. And as awesome as it'd be to live with Kigo, it'd only put the man in danger. He couldn't do that to the kid, because Kigo was a kid compared to Izuku's mental age. "You're the number 3 hero, right?" Izuku asked suddenly, causing Kigo's brows to furrow in confusion. "Yes." "Have you ever heard of a villain called All for One?" Kigo stiffened, and his entire demeanor changed. No longer was he so carefree and light. "How the hell did you learn that name? Come on, surely you know Viridian has an extensive information network?" "I have my ways." Izuku answered with a mysterious smirk before returning to the more serious topic. "I'm not after him, per se. but I am after his protege Shigaraki Tamura. Listen, Izuku. Vigilante or not, I can't let you go anywhere near All for One. You've no idea how dangerous he is. On the contrary, I know precisely how dangerous he is. It's why I can't risk staying with you. Once I'm on his radar, he'll use whatever means available to get to me. And people will notice if the number 3 hero gets a new roommate. Izuku. Please, Kigo. Izuku looked the hero in the eye. Please. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. There was a long pause. The two held a staring contest to test the other's will. Finally, Kigo relented with a sigh. I'm still going to bring you food and make sure you're not killing yourself with this stupid vigilante sheet. Izuku snorted. Careful. You make it sound like I'm a friend. Well, maybe you are. Huh. You don't have many friends, do you? I don't think I've ever had friends. Izuku replied dumbly. Even Shoyuta and Hizashi were more like brothers than friends. Yeah, I haven't really had many either. He shrugged. Guess we're in the same boat then. Here, gimme your phone. Why? So I can add my number. He paused. Oh wait, Stain trashed yours, didn't he? Yeah, my vigilante phone is still out of commission, so you'll have to make do with my civilian phone. Izuku smirked, tossing it at the blonde. You live in a dump, but own 2 phones? Correction. I live in a dump, so I fixed 2 phones and hacked them to be untraceable and free. He grinned. My vigilante phone is almost repaired, though. Finally found the stupid parts one needed. You're unbelievable. Kigo shook his head with a fond smile. Izuku laid back against the sand to watch the stars blink into view. Aren't your sidekicks worried? You've been disappearing over here a lot lately. Nah, they're used to me just up and vanishing for a bit. I'm pretty free-spirited. I'm going to go get ready for my patrol. Izuku decided, pushing himself up. I wish you'd wait another week. Nope. Sorry, no can do. While Masa and Eraser know I'm not dead, I still need to let them know what happened. Besides, Naomasa and the team's probably worried sick over me. I swear, if you end up bleeding out in an alleyway somewhere again, I'm going to stop bringing you coffee. No. Not the coffee. Izuku gasped. Go on, or they'll get more worried than they already are. Kigo shook his head fondly, and Izuku just shot him a grin as he tied on his mask. Have fun, don't burn down my place while I'm gone. I won't. Kigo promised. You've been missing for 10 days. Shoyuta glared at Viridian the moment he came into view. He, Tsukachi and his team, and Tsuragami had been growing increasingly concerned, especially when the vigilante had promised to text them and never did. He always texted them when he promised to. The phone call Naomasa had received from the vigilante 2 days after hadn't done much to alleviate their worries. The vigilante had been a constant face around the police department since their partnership, and he always met up with Shoyuta during the start of his patrol. So when the man just dropped off the map without warning, they'd assumed the worst. They'd been searching just about every crevice they could find in an attempt to contact or track down the vigilante. The call had helped a bit, but not much, especially considering the fact that he wouldn't respond to any calls or messages thereafter. Sorry. I sort of got hurt and needed some recovery time. My phone was trashed in the incident. Viridian scratched the back of his head sheepishly, and Shoyuta felt a spike of worry. How badly are we talking here? I ran into the hero killer, Stain, and he may have left me bleeding out in an alleyway halfway across town with a busted phone. Shoyuta felt himself pale. Show me. If he'd run into the hero killer, then it was a miracle he was still alive. That guy hardly ever let people live without some kind of permanent damage. The vigilante took a step back in surprise. The injury? I'm not going to let you patrol if you're still in bad shape. I don't let my co-workers die. You do care. Viridian smirked, and Shoyuta narrowed his eyes. Fine, fine. Viridian lifted the edge of his shirt to show white bandages. With a sigh, the vigilante carefully unwrapped the injury, revealing a rather nasty gash that was stitched up. Happy now? Who did the stitches? Shoyuta asked as he helped the man rewrap the injury. It had only been 10 days after all. He couldn't help but notice several other scars on what little skin he could see. What is this? 20 questions. I stitched myself up, like I always do. He huffed, and the hero sighed. No official medical treatment. Wonderful. Look, Viridian. You're part of our team now. That means you can actually get legally treated at hospitals without worry of being arrested. Shoyuta pinched the bridge of his nose to stave off an oncoming headache, as Viridian lowered his shirt. And if push comes to shove, then I'll even call Recovery Girl. You can't keep doing this. I'm more worried about being unmasked than arrested. He muttered. What's so important about your identity that you'd nearly die protecting it? Shuda's gaze narrowed. Whether he wanted to admit it or not, the Erasure hero had become rather fond of the immature vigilante. He was easy to talk to, and while mysterious, he was honest. It was refreshing for Shoyuta, and he often didn't find people who appreciated his dry sense of humor. I'll tell you one day, Viridian promised. But right now, if I told you who I was, it'd cause more harm than good, he smirked. Listen to your elders. He chuckled like he'd made a joke. Elders? Shoyuta raised an eyebrow. For all you know, I could be older than you. For the information you've given us, you could be younger too. Though Shoyuta highly doubted that was the case. The man moved with far too much experience and his eyes held far too many years. The world may never know. He smirked. I think that was a slogan for a candy at some point. Tootsie Pops. Shoyuta grunted. Definitely older. My great-grandfather loved those things. At any rate, since we're working together now, I thought it'd be nice to patrol with you, instead of making you run around after me. How thoughtful of you. Shoyuta twitched. Let me inform the other two about your situation, though. Have you all been worried about me? If we have, I wouldn't admit it. He fished out his phone, the black case fitting nicely in his hand. Eraserhead added Tsuragami to Chaos Unlimited group chat. Eraserhead, I found Viridian. He's okay. Detective Holmes, thank God. How is he? Is he hurt? Tsuragami, I'm glad to know he's okay. Eraserhead, you guys do care about me. Laughing face. Eraserhead, he's not hurt too badly, but if he steals my phone again, he might be. Detective Holmes, so what happened? Eraserhead, he ran into Stain, the hero killer. He's recovering nicely, but we'll be patrolling together until he's fully healed. It's a self-treated wound, but the stitches are passable. Tsuragami, Stain? Hand the phone to Viridian. I need information. Eraserhead, hold on, he's fiddling with a flip phone? I thought those died out centuries ago? Viridian Chaos, I feud it. Viridian Chaos, wait, feud. www, damn it, no. The WQ is broken. Detective Holmes, looks like it works just fine to me. Eraserhead, he means the WXYZ key. It's a flip phone, so he can't type X, Y, or Z. It comes out as a W. Seriously, why do you have a flip phone? I didn't even know those still existed. Shoyuta stared at the small grayish device in the vigilante's hand. It looked like it had seen better days, and even had welding marks on the back. Because they're durable as hell and untraceable. Besides, it's what I found in the trash, so it was free. I'm not complaining. You got your phone from the trash? Why? Shoyuta blinked. Was he one of those weirdos who went dumpster diving to find useful items? Strange. Oh shush. You're just jealous because I don't have a phone bill. I assure you, Viridian, I am not jealous. Viridian Chaos, he's totally jealous that I can fuel up my phone and not paw a phone bill. Eraserhead, would you just let it drop? Viridian Chaos, winky face. Nope. Detective Holmes, I'm lost. Eraserhead, good. Viridian Chaos, we're all lost to the darkest corners of our deepest fears, lest we learn to stand and fight in our most desperate hour. Detective Holmes, that was surprisingly deep. Viridian Chaos, an old friend told me that once. I think he was drunk. Shoyuta sighed. Are we going to patrol or not? Viridian Chaos, gotta go patrol now. And that info on Stain. He's got some pretty serious ideals, so I'll tell WoW about that in person, but I didn't real get a good gauge on his quirk. He definitely has one. It's got something to do with paralysis. I didn't see what he did, he's so fast. But I found myself unable to move for a short period of time. I recommend that no bottle patrol alone until we're sure he's left town. Viridian Chaos. I hate the fact that this stupid queue is broken. Tsuragami. Noted. I'll put out the word for the heroes. Thank you, Viridian. And I'm glad you're still with us. Detective Holmes, seriously, first you got shot, twice, and now you've gotten yourself stabbed by a man who's known for murdering heroes. I'm starting to think that maybe you're a trouble magnet. Viridian Chaos. Mob I am? That would you plain a few things. Tsuragami. Viridian, your penchant for finding trouble is both invaluable and dangerous. For this reason, I'm going to ask Eraserhead to stick by you as often as possible. Eraserhead, I'll make no promises. He's pretty DM and slippery when he wants to be. You're just peeved because you couldn't catch me. Viridian smirked. Either way, we'll be working together a lot from this point forward. Shoyuta huffed, though he was actually rather pleased. It would put his mind at ease to be able to keep an eye on the vigilante during patrols. Viridian went to put his phone back in his pocket, but a nearby pigeon nearly clipped his ear, causing the man to drop his mobile device. Effing bird. He muttered as he bent down to pick it up. A small slip of paper fell out from one of his many hidden pockets. Shoyuta picked up the paper that had landed by his feet. It looked like a business card. It was made of good quality paper and was black with silver letters. Chisaki Kai, Shoyuta paled. Viridian, where did you get this card? The vigilante looked up, puzzled as he held out his hand for said card. Oh, Overhaul gave it to me when I met him a few months back. During that quirk-destroying drag bust. He replied nonchalantly. Have you any idea how dangerous this man is? I know quite well, which is why I played nice and took the business card. He offered me a position working for him, and when I politely declined, he instead offered me a partnership should I ever want it. Of course, I'm not stupid enough to dip my toes into that kind of web. I know my limits, thanks. Well, at least you know that much. Shoyuta let the topic drop thereafter. He'd bring it up to Tsuragami and Tsukachi later, but for now, they had a patrol to do. And if he was being honest, the Erasure hero was interested to see how the infamous Viridian worked. He always found trouble before the other heroes, and nobody's ever actually seen him in action. Most of the work he's been doing with Tsukachi has been information gathering and whatnot. Nobody's actually seen him fight yet. The image of the vigilante flitting across the beams of that warehouse like a living shadow came to his mind. You comin', or what? Viridian asked as he turned away from Shuta's route. The patrol ring is this way. If you're gonna make me stay with you on patrol, then we're taking my patrol route, not yours. Why do I feel like I'm going to regret this? Because you've never patrolled here. Viridian was smirking, Shoyuta knew it. But the other man's words confused him. Shoyuta had patrolled over nearly all of Mizutafu and the surrounding territories. The only place he wasn't able to consistently patrol was. You don't mean the south side? His eyes widened. What, is the brave pro-hero afraid of a little ghost town? The vigilante teased. I just don't see how patrolling that area is logical. Shoyuta twitched. It's very poor, and there isn't much crime. The few times I have patrolled there have turned up nothing. Sometimes I doubt there are even people there. Oh, believe me there are. There was a strange gleam to Viridian's eyes. I patrol the south side regularly. That's why you never see any crime. I stop it before it starts. It's actually quite a nasty piece of Mizutafu no other heroes bother with it, so people typically do as they please. Shoyuta sighed as he made to follow after the vigilante. Today is going to be a long shift. Cult of Viridian chat. Gay Fanemy Boy is online. Gay Fanemy Boy. Hey, has anyone seen Viridian lately? He's been MA for a couple of weeks. Moldy Broccoli, I've been worried too. Dragonina Dress, I'm sure he's fine. Noiscardily, rumors say that he got hurt and is recovering. Ehavenome, I saw him out on patrol again, he's fine. He's patrolling with Eraserhead. Dragonina Dress. With who? Gay Fanemy Boy, I think he's some underground hero. Noiscardily, Eraserhead is a top-ranked underground pro hero. He's from Yuzudafu. Nobody really knows much about him because he's very private and hates the press. I've heard rumors that he's good with vigilantes, so that may be why he's with Viridian. Gay fanime boy, I'm just glad Viridian's okay. Smiley face. I was really worried. Barbie's a war, my dad's a cop. I overheard something about Viridian being attacked by Stain. If it's true, but if it is, then I'm glad he's all right. The Kakisalai, you mean the hero killer? 0.0. Barbie's a war, that's just what I've heard. If it's true though. Gay fanime boy, I'm gonna go, guys. My bro's gotta head to bed early for a test tomorrow. He's aiming for UA. Wish him luck. Dragonine address. Isn't the entrance exam next month? Gay fanime boy, yeah. He's working really hard to get in. I know he can do it. He's so cool. The Kakisalai, I wish him luck, then. Deku is online. Gay fanime boy, new person? The Kakisalai, welcome back, Deku. Haven't seen you on here in a while. Deku, I guess it has been a year or so, hasn't it? Noiscardily, Deku's been part of this chat room for years. He's a huge hero fan, and knows just about everything about all of them. Though he vanished suddenly about 9 months ago. Barbie's a war, were you Arjun and T? Deku was. No, I'm a guy. Angry face. The Kisalai, so your girlfriend then? Deku, bold of you to assume I could land a girlfriend. I could be gay for all you know. Demonic gay microwave, 0_0 that wasn't a no. Deku, bullying at school got really bad, and I've been through some serious life changes. But anyways, I just wanted to check in and let you guys know that I'm still alive, I think, and still kicking. But Gay fanime boy, have you heard about Viridian? Dragonine address. Who hasn't heard about Viridian? Moldy broccoli. I mean, we've kinda redone the chat a bit, so. Deku. Why is the chat named Cult of Viridian? 0_. Moldy broccoli, because Viridian's the best hero ever, and he will prevail. Deku. Wait. You all won't see me on much. I'm also trying for UA. Wish me luck. Gay fanime boy. Oh. If you see my bro, say hi. He's got spiky red hair, just dyed it, and a shark-toothed smile. You can't miss him. Deku, will do. Smiley face. Tell him to look out for a plain kid with freckles and green hair. Noiscardily, red and green, you two will be like a walking Christmas ad. Deku, I'm logging out now. Bye. Deku has logged out. Izuku stared at the computer screen as Kigo chuckled behind him. Oh, that's great. They idolize you. Really hadn't expected that at all. He opened a new tab and started typing in his vigilante name. He couldn't be that popular, right? Wrong. Oh, he was so wrong. Kigo was busting his gut laughing so hard. You really have no idea, do you? People love you, Aizu. When you go pro, you'll already have a following. I think I should be scared. Oh no. Kigo grinned. Be terrified. Izuku was lounging in his refurbished lawn chair by his fire pit as he enjoyed some pasta that he'd cooked. He really couldn't thank Kigo enough for all the food and supplies he'd given to him, even if it did seem like a bit much at times. The sun was shining down, and the wind blew through his dirty green hair. Maybe I should shower soon? How long has it been since you last bathed? Kigo asked as he came into the clearing. He once tried to land from the skies and nearly toppled the delicately piled trash heaps with the wind his wings had created. So he had to memorize the very specific non-booby-trapped route that Izuku had dug out to get to his secluded home. Well, I don't exactly have running water here. I sneak into the gym by the library whenever I can to catch a quick shower. Or, you could just waltz into my place and use my stuff. Kigo tossed something at him, and Izuku looked down incredulously at a bright silver key. Don't look so surprised. You've been to my apartment before. Yeah, but you've given me the key to your apartment. That's kinda different. Not really. I'm a busy high-ranking hero, and you're a busy high-ranking vigilante who helps out the police. Plus, the entrance exams for UA are tomorrow. He grinned as he flopped down in the other lawn chair. You ready? As I'll ever be. Izuku's expression soured. He'd failed the exam miserably in his original timeline. I put in all the paperwork for my weapons months ago, and Nizu's approved them. Relax, Izuku. Kigo sent him a carefree smile. You're the best vigilante in all of Japan. You ran circles around every pro-hero and police force out there, even All Might and Endeavor. This exam will be nothing to you. He remembered that one time that All Might himself had tried to catch him when he'd been patrolling on Tokyo. The man had been terrifyingly quick and strong, and he did not like being on the other end of that smile. But he'd managed to outwit the #1 hero and give him the slip until his 3 hours were up. He jumped quite drastically in the vigilante rankings thereafter. As far as he knew, he was one of the only vigilantes to ever outrun All Might. And it had been incredibly satisfying to do so. Like he was flipping the man the finger after he'd crushed his dreams twice. You're right. Izuku relaxed a bit. You have to be. Izuku was also happy to note that the local homeless thugs in his area no longer gave him any trouble. After he took on that, one guy with some kind of bear quirk and the others backed off rather quickly. He'd earned their respect, which was everything on the streets. 2 things would keep you from being used or killed when you were homeless. It was the difference between living on the streets and running the streets. Respect and connections. And Izuku had both, though they didn't know the connections bit, as he hardly interacted with anyone. But that was his choice. He didn't need to interact with the street crowd yet. He knew who was who, of course, and they knew him, but only enough to keep away. He had about 6 people who owed him favors, and that was enough for now. Izuku had also been keeping an eye on his vigilante persona's online standing. He was blown away by the number of supporters he had across Japan. It wasn't just Mizudafu or Hosu, not just the places he'd actually patrolled. It was everywhere. He even had people in other countries that were taking an interest in him. Word had spread about how he helped people that the heroes couldn't or wouldn't reach. He vaguely recalled saving a very well-known quirkless man from a mugging months ago, and he'd apparently written an entire article on the interaction. He strongly noted how Viridian had taken his quirkless status with a smile and saved him anyways. Apparently that earned him a lot of supporters globally from people with weak quirks or no quirks. Normally he wouldn't understand it, but this time he did. Because he knew what that was like. He knew firsthand that there were some heroes that would turn around and walk away from a quirkless person in need. He'd seen it. He'd lived it. There was no way he'd ever turn his back on anyone. That's not who Viridian was. That's not who Izuku was. And that, he'd say, he was proud of. Later that night Viridian sat on a rooftop at 3 in the morning, enjoying the night breeze as he calmed his nerves. In about 4 hours he'd be seated down for his written exam. He was too nervous and excited to sleep, no matter what Kigo had said about resting up. After all, the fate of the entire world was hinging on him actually getting into UA this time. Izuku hoped he didn't blow it. He'd been patrolling with Eraserhead nearly every night, and on the nights he wasn't patrolling with him, he went with a different hero. He enjoyed the patrols with Midnight too, even if she'd loathed patrolling the south side. Eraserhead had certainly been shocked at his ability to find trouble. He wasn't sure the man would ever let him patrol alone again. Tsukachi made sure that nobody, especially Viridian, patrolled alone while Stain was still at large. Some nights, Viridian spent his time with Tsukachi and his team, helping them look over case files and pointing out things they'd missed or overlooked. Other nights, he patrolled with his favorite underground hero. He smirked as he heard the quiet footsteps of Eraserhead on the roof behind him. The man sat down beside him. But thought we were supposed to patrol together. Eraserhead raised a reprimanding eyebrow as he held out a cup of coffee to Izuku, who took it gratefully. He smiled as he gave a nod of thanks. And I thought you'd get some extra shut-eye, considering you've got a long day tomorrow. Aren't the UA entrance exams in a few hours? Aizawa sighed, taking a long sip of his coffee. I'd ask how you knew I was a teacher there, but I doubt I'll get any answers from you. Don't like that, Zoa? His eyes crinkled in a smile, making the hero twitch in annoyance. I'm just looking out for you, trying to make sure you take care of yourself. That's not your job. He replied gruffly. It is, because I'm your friend. You're a coworker, not a friend. He glared, but there was a certain fondness behind those eyes. Totally a friend, Sandra. Over the last month or so that he'd been patrolling with Eraserhead, the two had grown close. Eraserhead had learned to trust Viridian's gut instincts and let him lead the patrols to find trouble. Viridian was a bit more confident during the daytime, too, and had started some smaller patrols in the late afternoon. Perhaps because of this, several civilians had started to mistake him for an actual hero, which Eraserhead had pointed out he technically could be without the license because he was quirkless. The hero license pretty much just let people use their quirks legally, and since Viridian didn't have one, he didn't need one to be a hero. Though he still should have one, and it would help him gain access to information and places that he couldn't legally access otherwise. The fact that those words actually put Viridian in tears was something that only Eraserhead knew, and he started freaking out when he saw Viridian crying, but calmed down when he was told that he was happy, because no one had ever told him that before. His online persona was really popular. People always talked about Viridian sightings and the like. They nicknamed him the Shadow Hero because he was hardly ever seen while working. Viridian thought it was a cool nickname. Maybe he'd keep it? The Shadow Hero, Viridian. Yeah, that sounded badass. Speaking of online, he'd ghosted several chat rooms and was shocked to see people making merchandise off of him. Like what? He wasn't a hero. Why would people want merchandise of him? It had taken Kigo shoving barbecue chicken wings into his mouth to snap him out of that stupor. So you gonna tell me who's under that mask? Eraserhead asked casually. It's become a little joke to them now. Though he could tell that the man really wanted to know. Nope. But, just a heads up, you might not see me as often for a little bit. Viridian looked over the city. Things are calm right now, something big is coming. A lot of villains have been going off the grid lately. Be careful, Shoyuta. The man scowled lightly at the use of his given name. He never got used to Viridian calling him by that. Could you maybe call me by my hero name while I'm on the clock? Life's too short to worry about silly things like formalities. You're my friend, so I'll call you what I want. Eraserhead gave him an odd look. Sometimes I swear you're older than me. His eyes narrowed. But other times you seem younger than my first years. Well, if all goes well, tomorrow I might be one of your first years. Those words were so close to escaping his mouth, but he bit back the urge. It was much more convenient to keep Izuku and Viridian as two separate people, right now. Izuku would be his student, and Viridian would be his informant comrade. There was little chance Aizawa would let Viridian fight by his side if he knew he wasn't even old enough to legally drive. The man was honestly too soft when it came to children. I promise you, Aizawa, I'm no first year. He chuckled. Not yet? Or would it be not anymore? My shift is nearly done. I should get going. Eraserhead sighed. And so should you. Be safe. And like I said, be careful. The underworld is stirring these days, and I rather like you. I don't want you dead. Pass it on to Masa and Ken, would you? I still can't believe Tsuragami lets you call him by his given name. Eraserhead shook his head. Same to you, Viridian. Be safe. I'll see you later. The vigilante couldn't help but smirk as he watched the hero go. He stayed until the sun started to peek over the horizon, painting the sky. All right, you. Here I come. He cackled as he vanished out of sight. Cult of Viridian chat. Gay Fanemy Boy is online. Gay Fanemy Boy, guys. Check it out. Gay Fanemy Boy, Viridian_bedspread.jpg. Dragonine address. Did you buy Viridian merch? That's a thing. Moldy broccoli, I must have. Where you buy? Gay Fanemy Boy, off Etsy. PPL makes stuff by hand there. It's pretty chill. I've got a Viridian keychain, too. And some stickers, and maybe a poster. Noiscardily, he's getting very popular. I've seen more and more people with his merchandise walking around. Sometimes, when there's a crime near my house, I live in a bad neighborhood, I hear people calling for Viridian instead of just help or a hero. The Kakisalai, you mean they call him by name? That's pretty dim and cool. Noiscardily, yeah, and the thing is, he comes. Consistently. It's like he has a homing beacon for trouble. It's really cool to see. Gay Fanemy Boy, are you stalking him or something? Noiscardily, it's my quirk. I can see everything in a certain radius of me. The calmer I am, the wider the radius. Dragonine address, you guys are lucky. I'm over here in France. I don't even have the ghost of a chance to meet up with Viridian. GIF anime boy, wait, you live in an area he regularly patrols, right? You wouldn't happen to be in Yuzutafu, would you? Noise scardily, mayhaps I am? GIF anime boy, so am I. That's so cool. Demonic gay microwave. Then you've got me, living over here in Tokyo by my lonesome. Barbie's a war, don't be such a mope. I live in Tokyo half the time too. The other half I live with my dad in Muzutafu. He works for the cops of Muzutafu PD, and apparently Viridian's been working with them. I haven't seen or met him yet, though. Thinking of asking my dad if I can. Gay fanime boy, if you do, please take me with you. I have to thank him for saving my life. Noise scardily, it would be pretty cool. Barbie's a war, I'll have to ask. My dad doesn't work directly with him, but he knows the guy that does. Apparently Viridian's a bit skittish, though. Gee, I wonder why? Gay fanime boy, ack. Gee, bro's going to sleep and we share a room. UA exams tomorrow, you know? Wish him luck. Noise scardily, oh yeah. At Deku, good luck on your exams today. Laughing face. We're all rooting for you. Barbie's a war, good luck, Deku. Gay fanime boy, good luck. Find my bro, yeah? Gay fanime boy has logged out. Izuku was walking around downtown in the early afternoon. School had just gotten out, and he wanted to spend some time out and about in his civilian persona for a change. Bakugo had been concentrating on studying lately, what with the UA exams coming up, so Izuku didn't have to worry about his school bullies as much. A flash of green caught his eye, and he stopped to stare at a kid walking by. He had a dark green hoodie with Shadow Hero, Viridian, written across it. What the? Was that merch? For him? He took a closer look at the keychain of the woman walking by. It was a chibi version of his face. Or a masked face, at least. Excuse me, miss? He stopped her, and she turned to look over at him. Where'd you get that? He pointed to the keychain. Oh, another Viridian fan, huh? He sure is popular. She grinned. You can really only find his merch online places like Etsy who make stuff by hand and to order, but I think there might be a shop or two in the mall that has some stuff for him. Honestly, sometimes I forget he's not a legal hero. She laughed before bidding a shell-shocked Izuku goodbye. He had merch. What the hell? He pulled out his cell phone and called Kigo. You knew. He accused the moment the winged hero picked up the phone. You're going to have to be a tad more specific than that, Aizu. Viridian has merch. He still couldn't process this. He wasn't a hero. Why did he have merch? A vigilante with merch was unheard of. That was like a villain getting merch, it just didn't happen. He stared as a kid across the street loudly proclaimed to his sister that he wanted to be a hero like Viridian someday. The world had gone crazy. This was a whole new type of apocalypse. Yep. Wondered how long it'd take you to catch on. You're really popular, you know. Kigo sounded amused. Traitor. But Viridian is a vigilante. Not a hero. He echoed dumbly. Yep. He chirped happily. Listen, Izuku. Why do you think the police accepted your offer? Because we can help people? Suddenly he wasn't so sure anymore. Why had they agreed to a partnership? It was actually fairly unheard of for a vigilante to work with the police like this. Something that hadn't happened since, oh, wow, since the pre-Quirk era. Try again, Kigo teased. I have connections? It's because they know it's impossible to catch you. Kigo responded. They can't win against you. So when you offered to join their side, they jumped at the chance. It's a sore spot, but you beat them. They have no power over you, Aizu. You have power and you don't even know it. Me? Izuku laughed. You're right. April Fool's is long past, K. He shook his head. And here he thought the winged hero was going to give him an actual answer. Though he did have a point that they couldn't catch him. Maybe that was why. If you can't catch him, join him? Or something like that. Anyways, I've got to go. Still got a few errands to run. Love you, bro. He chuckled as he heard Kigo splutter on the other end. Yeah. Don't get into too much trouble, baby bro. Izuku felt his face heat up as he clicked off the phone. He hadn't thought Kigo would take his little joke seriously. Didn't mean he didn't like it, though. And hello everyone. This is day 6, I think, of consecutive updates. And day 2-3 of me actually having a TikTok account. Already got 60 people following me. For some reason, do they not have a life? I also made an email specifically for fan art and the like. It's izawa@email.com, fairly simple, right? Someone has also requested a physical mailing port, so I've made a P.O. box. Rest assured, I am an adult and can make responsible decisions. So if there's something you want to send, let me know and I'll send you the P.O. box number thing, okay? So we finally hit the UA exams in Viridian, right after Swan Dive 2, and I can't believe all the amazing fan art I've gotten for Swan Dive. You guys are incredible. I can't wait to post it on the next SD chapter. Laughing face. Also, why is Demon Aizawa Dragon Aizawa not a thing? Like, I was in my Aizawa cosplay and put on my black dragon wings and horns and was like, Demon, this should be a popular AU, but it isn't. Come on guys. Imagine it. Aizawa plus fangs plus wings plus horns. Instantly puts him on Sebastian's field. Think about it. Already itching to write a FIC with this. Another thing. I feel the need to announce that this is day 3 of me sustaining myself completely off of smoothies and frosted mini wheat cereal, dry. I feel like this is not how I should eat. But I'm too lazy to go downstairs and microwave myself food right now. I'd rather write. Stairs a cup of ramen I snatched up at Walmart the other day, there's that too. Please stay safe out there with Corona. Wash those hands. All the DMN time. I'm serious, I had a customer today who just lost her niece and husband in the span of a week. I want everyone to be safe, okay? I love you all. This chapter has been edited and reposted as of July 12, 2020. Izawa Shoyuta sighed tiredly as he took his place in the examiner room at UA. He didn't exactly agree with the hour that the exam was held at, but he supposed that was only because he didn't get off shift until 4:30 that same morning. He smirked as he pulled out his phone, clicking into the group chat. Let's sleep. I'm effing tired, and it's all your fault, Viridian. Viridian chaos. Nope, it's your fault too. You didn't have to sit and talk to me. Besides, you're the one who brought caffeine. Detective Holmes. Another late night with no coffee? Viridian chaos. I can hear your amusement from here, Masa. And I just said there was caffeine, obviously, that'd be coffee. So there. Tongue sticking out. Detective Holmes, I keep telling you not to call me by my given name, let alone a butchered form of it. Tsurigami, and you aren't used to this by now? Viridian chaos. How about Fury then? Like that old character from the Marvel movies? He's pretty kick-ass. Viridian chaos changed Detective Holmes's username to Fury. Fury, change it back. Viridian chaos. Whoops. I've got some shit to do. Text you later. And have fun at the UA entrance exams, Eraser. I think you'll be pretty impressed with this year's batch. Let me sleep. You've been watching them? Viridian chaos. I may have seen one or two of them use a quirk here or there. Winky face. Hope you managed to keep some of your class this year. Let me sleep. I'm going to regret getting up this morning, aren't I? Fury, don't you always? Shoyuta sighed as he pocketed his phone, ignoring the questioning look that Namuri was sending him. Texting your partner again? She smirked, amused. He's not my, Shoyuta sighed. Technically, he supposed Viridian was his partner. Keep telling yourself that. Personal feelings aside, Shoyuta couldn't shake the feeling that Viridian was someone that he should keep an eye on. The past almost year that he'd been interacting with the Vigilante had made him actually like him. The fact that the Vigilante had once taken a goddamned bullet for him didn't hurt the trust he was fostering with the mysterious man either. And he's still worried about his friend? Were they friends? Because the guy never seemed to go to a FING hospital either. Shoyuta had half a mind to make him just take the stupid hero license exam and get him certified so he wouldn't have an excuse about going to the stupid hospital. So, what do you think of the examinees this year? Namuri asked as she slipped an arm around his shoulders, startling him out of his thoughts. I don't know, the exam is only just starting. Shoyuta replied as his husband's voice filtered across the speakers. Go! He noted that only one examinee in Battle Center be bothered to move. It was a kid with green fluffy hair and a hoodie. Did he get that approved? Shoyuta pointed to the sword that the kid wielded. Nizu looked up at the screen. Oh yes. Examinee 2234, Midoriya Izuku. He sent in the request for a few items a couple of months ago. I saw no problem with it, so I agreed. Items? Other than the sword? Cementos asked, watching as the kid tore through a three-pointer brutally. Demon, he actually knows how to wield that. Shoyuta thought in disbelief. Yes, though he only asked for 3 things. Nizu grinned. His sword. The kid shoved another examinee out of the way as he blocked an attack that would have seriously injured the other kid. A first aid kit. Nizu continued as the kid helped another examinee who'd gotten a rather nasty cut on his arm. He wrapped the wound with the kind of fast diligence that only came from field experience. And a lot of it. Who the hell is this kid? And a cell phone. A cell phone? Snipe asked incredulously. Nizu nodded. I'm quite interested to see what he's planning, to be honest. What are his points at so far? Midnight asked. 37, Cementos stated. He's doing a fantastic job, but in helping the other examinees, he's hindered his villain points. He's regaining them in rescue points, though. I'm somewhat worried to see an examinee with that much medical experience. 13 admitted. It's unnerving to watch him act like the buildings blowing up around him is normal. Did you notice? I did. Shoyuta nodded. Something was off about this kid. Did he survive a villain attack or something? No, that would make sense if the loud sounds were inducing more traumatic reactions. He seemed almost like a soldier, used to chaos and havoc around him. Even pros wouldn't be quite that calm, though Shoyuta imagined that it was possible that the kid just felt safer knowing it was an exam. Let's see how everyone reacts to this then. Nizu let out a feral grin as he pressed the big red button to release the 0 pointers. He expected the kid to freeze. To run like everyone else, no matter how disappointed Shoyuta and the other teachers were when everyone ran. But to their shock, he got up and ran towards the massive killer robot without a hint of hesitation. Almost like he was waiting for it. There's a girl trapped under the rubble. Cementos pointed out, and Midnight radioed Hizashi to make sure that the hero was on standby, ready to rescue her if need be. What's that Midoriya kid doing? 13 asked, watching as he jumped on top of an active 1-pointer. He then pried off the panel on the back of the robot and pulled out his phone. He messed around with something the camera couldn't see before the smaller robot stopped moving. He grinned and started typing in haste. A moment later, every robot in Battle Center B shut down, including the 0-pointer. The room was silent. The sound of someone dropping their pen sounded like a grenade. Did something happen? Was that a glitch? Midnight stuttered. I don't believe it. Nizu's eyes were wide and gleaming with excitement. He hacked the robots. He broke the exam. With a cell phone. He started laughing maniacally. Why don't seriously mean? Vlad King looked pale as he realized that Nizu was interested and excited by this kid. No way. All Might's eyes were wide as he choked on his own saliva. That can't be the same boy? Might. Shuta's eyes narrowed. No, I met him once. I remember him vaguely. He's quirkless. His words sent the room into murmurs. All the more reason. Nizu grinned. Aizawa, I hope you'll train this boy properly. He'll be joining you in your class this year. Shoyuta bit back a groan. Great. Just what I need, a problem child. Yes, sir. Because what else was he supposed to say to his boss? Vlad King sent him a pitying look. For a moment, he wondered if this quirkless boy was related in any way to the Quirkless Vigilante, but quickly brushed off the thought. There were plenty of quirkless people in the older generations. It was highly unusual for a child to be born quirkless in this day and age, and he'd surely need to keep an eye out for any lasting trauma from a rough childhood due to that, but there were plenty more quirkless people in Viridian's age group. Besides, Tsukachi had assured him that the man had spoken the truth when asked about his reasonings for being a vigilante. And he'd stated that he'd failed every high school hero exam he'd taken, which meant that he was a fully grown man, not a 15-year-old boy. There was no possible way that Viridian and Midoriya Izuku could be the same person. Shoyuta took a sip of his coffee, and the thought wouldn't pop back into his head for weeks to come. Izuku was a wreck. It had been nearly 2 weeks since the exams, and he had no idea if he passed or not. Shoyuta had told him about the rescue points, so he'd made sure to help as many people as possible. Logically, with the 40-something villain points he'd managed to get, plus the rescue points, he was probably going to pass. But what if they knocked off points for quirklessness? Or recklessness? Or hacking the robots? He hadn't even thought about being disqualified for it. So here he was, stalking his mother's house to steal his UA letter before she came out to snatch it. Izuku obviously couldn't tell them to send his mail to the dump, now could he? And though Kigo had offered to let him use his address, the fact that a quirkless 15-year-old knew the number 3 hero well enough to use his private address would bring up more questions than he'd like to answer. Besides his mother and he shared the same last name. They wouldn't even look twice at the address. Beyond that, there was a tiny, bitter part of him that really didn't care if all for one targeted Inko. He tensed as he saw a thick, heavy envelope mixed in with the bills. He carefully replaced the rest of his Mo Inko's mail and quickly made his way back home. He'd also been unable to meet up with Gaofanimboy's brother, though he had caught sight of spiky red hair in the crowd at some point. He'd honestly been far too worried about everything to process much. And seeing his present mic up on that stage was hard. Really FING hard. It took every ounce of self-control he had not to cry upon seeing him, or rush up there and assure himself that he was okay. He swallowed down his unbearably strong urge to apologize, but he must have made some kind of sound because the blue-haired kid called him out on being disruptive. Luckily, Izuku had managed to pull himself together by that point, so the spotlight illuminating him hadn't reflected off half-formed tears. Though he was able to see the flash of concern in Present Mic's face, he knew that the man had seen something and had immediately called the attention back to himself. Izuku was grateful. He hadn't said anything to the blue-haired kid, wasn't he a member of the Ida family? Because he couldn't let anything hinder his chances of getting into UA. He had to pass, the literal fate of the world depended on it. He shook his head to dispel the thoughts. The exam was over, and if all went according to plan, then he'd just have to get used to seeing Hisashi and everyone all over again. Once he was settled in his camper, he sat down on his ratty futon and carefully opened the envelope. Kigo was out on patrol right now, so Izuku was blessedly alone. A thick, heavy disc fell to the floor with a thump and a projection appeared. "I am here as a projection." All Might's smiling face beamed down at Izuku, and he couldn't help but scowl. Sure, he didn't necessarily hate the symbol of peace, but he didn't like the man either. Experience has taught him the bitter truth to All Might's words on the rooftop that day. He was no longer angry with him for what he'd said, but he was still hurt and a little bitter for it. Izuku was allowed to feel hurt for having his dreams crushed by his hero, after all. "You managed to get 44 villain points in the exam. Well done, my boy." "Not your boy." Izuku glared half-heartedly, deciding to ignore the fact that this was a projection. Unfortunately, this in and of itself is not enough to pass. Izuku's heart stuttered, and for one horrific moment, he feared he'd blown everything. If he hadn't passed, then his next best bet was to take Kigo and Aizawa up on their offers of a sponsorship. He'd have to reveal his identity, but, however, his attention snapped back to the projection. "You were also awarded rescue points during the exam. And you, Midoriya Izuku, managed to gain an astonishing 88 rescue points. Amazing! Not only that, but you managed to do something incredible. Nobody has ever managed to hack the robots before, and Principal Nizu is keen on meeting you himself." He stared at the projection. From what Izuku had heard of the mouse-rat-bear-dog thing that was the principal of UA, he wasn't really sure if that was a good thing or not. Shoyuta seemed to be rather terrified of the little guy. "Congratulations. 132 points puts you at the top of the list. Not only that, but you've broken the record. Welcome, Midoriya Shounen, to your hero academia." The projection shut off, and Izuku sighed in relief. "I made it." It took him several minutes of staring at the ceiling of his makeshift home before he found himself crying and laughing hysterically. The first time he'd tried the exam, he'd failed miserably. Not a single-point villain or rescue. He'd subsequently failed every hero school entrance exam he'd taken, before settling for an academic school instead. And while his choice was by no means a shitty school, it still wasn't heroics. Eventually, he went to a trade school for technology, hoping to at least make support weapons for heroes. He found that he had a knack for hacking and technology, and pursued that career, eventually gaining a PhD in computer science, hence how he hacked the robots so easily. However, he soon became restless, and making support gear and helping out heroes by hacking information for them just wasn't enough. Even if his support gear was known as some of the best available right up there with Hatsum Industries. He needed to be out there, helping people. Really helping them. So he took up his proverbial cape and cowl and became a vigilante. He really essayed at first, but luckily there'd been much more sinister things to keep the attention of the heroes and police occupied until he found his rhythm. He'd been a very well-known and semi-respected vigilante for 6 years before the apocalypse hit. Before Shigaraki gained the power of All for One and destroyed everything, releasing the feral Nomu, leveling cities and entire nations with the flick of a wrist, killing All Might. Izuku shook his head, dispelling his memories as he held the very real acceptance letter to the UA Heroics course. It's like a dream. Maybe I actually did die. He shifted, wincing as he accidentally whacked his funny bone off the side of the table. Most dreams don't have pain, only flashbacks, memories and nightmares. So, not a dream. He tilted his head, laughing. Not that my dreams would ever be this kind. He shook his head. He needed to rest. He'd been too worried about his letter to really do much of that lately, and he could feel his eyes burning with the need for sleep. He picked up the photo of his real family. He kept it face down so Kigo wouldn't see it by accident, because it'd bring up a lot of uncomfortable questions. I really did it. Namiri, please watch over me. I promise you, I'll do everything I can to make this right. The stars twinkled down at him. Cult of Viridian chat. Gay Fanemy Boy is online. Gay Fanemy Boy, guys. My brother passed. He made it into UA's hero course. Aflofwef, WJ, Flest Fogerlukf. Neusgardeli, are you okay? Moldy Broccoli, OMV that's amazing. Barbizawar, Omv? Moldy Broccoli, oh my Viridian. We are the cult of Viridian, so that means he's our god. Deku, what did I just walk in on? Confused face. Gay Fanemy Boy, my brother made it into UA. He's gonna be a hero. Though he said he didn't see you there. Sad face. Deku, I think I saw him in the crowd, but I was too nervous to talk to him. The Kakisalai, you still didn't tell us how you did, Deku? Demonic gay microwave. Cake, he might not want to talk about it. Deku, actually, I passed? I still can hardly believe it. I made it into the hero course. Gay a Fanemy Boy, how you Hawaiiua. Congrats. You did it. You might be in the same class as my bro. That'd be so cool. Deku. Neusgardeli. Deku, you realize that your hero analysis skills are top-notch, right? Like, PPL know you on the internet. Deku, what? The Kakisalai. I mean, with a quirk like yours, I'm sure that you'll become a great hero. Laughing face. Deku. Quirk. Neusgardeli. Sorry, we just all assumed you had some kind of analysis quirk. Deku, actually, that's the thing. The reason I'm so shocked I made it into you is because I'm, quirkless. Neusgardeli. Surprised face what? Barbizawar, you're joking. Two pinky toe joints. GIF Fanemy Boy, so you're like, what, UA's first quirkless student? That's so manly. Deku, I mean I think so? Ick how I managed to pass. The Kakisalai, remind me never to challenge you to a fight. Geez. You don't need a quirk to kick but apparently. Deku, my fam and I are celebrating my success. Smiley face. Neusgardeli, congrats. Have fun. The Kakisalai, and no worries, we don't care that you're quirkless. Gay if fanemy boy. Internet's great for finding friends that don't give AF dash. Smiley face. Barbie's a war. LANGUAGE. GIF fanemy boy. Current language setting is Japanese with a dash of I don't give a F dash. Tongue sticking out. Dev has logged out. Show Yuta sighed as he leapt across the rooftops with Viridian. It was about a week before the start of school, and he had about 1.5 million things to do. Fortunately, patrols were a lot easier when you weren't going it alone. He'd been patrolling with the vigilante nearly every night now. The guy was pretty much healed, and his patrol route was never the same twice. He always found the most trouble. It was like Viridian had a built-in beacon for people who needed help. And Shoyuta had noted that many of the people who called out for help in or near the south side exclusively called for Viridian himself, like he was the only one who would heed their cries for help. Either way, it had been a rather busy night, and things were starting to calm down. The two of them stopped atop a roof for a breather. "What you say to a quick cup of joe?" Viridian asked, tilting his head. "Cup of joe? Isn't that an old American saying?" "From the 20th and 21st centuries, actually." He grinned. Not for the first time, the hero wondered just who was beneath that mask. Or how old he was at the very least. "Coffee sounds good." He agreed. But then again, Shoyuta was always down for a cup of coffee. The two of them landed on street level and went into the nearby cafe. It was one of Shuta's regular haunts, and the barista recognized him immediately. "I erase her head. Your usual?" He nodded as she rattled off his order to one of the other baristas who started his coffee. "Enrique, long time no see. Your usual as well?" she asked the vigilante, and Shoyuta twitched internally. Mostly because Viridian was probably coming to Shuta's favorite coffee shop long before they teamed up. "Right under my nose." "You got it, Yuko." He smiled back at her, and Shoyuta could swear he saw her blush. Within minutes they were seated at a table with their drinks. It was nearly the end of their shift anyhow. There shouldn't be anything for the last 20 minutes unless some idiot decided that 4 in the morning was the perfect time to rampage, which, knowing Viridian's luck, was a very real possibility. "I haven't been here in weeks." Viridian sat back in his seat and pulled up his mask. Shoyuta had noticed that the man never spoke with his mask up. Was there? Is that a voice disguiser? He blinked in surprise at the tiny mechanical device stitched discreetly into the fabric of the mask. The vigilante gave him a fanged smirk as he pulled his mask back down. "Yep." He chirped happily. "I could be a lot older or younger than you anticipated. Or I could be girl." His eyes crinkled with an amused grin. "Or this could be my real voice and I use the voice changer on my enemies? I'm going to get another migraine if I try to get a straight answer out of you, aren't I?" "Absolutely. But that's what the coffee is for." "You're giving me gray hairs, Viridian." "Please, your students do that for me." "I don't have any students this year." "Ah, but that'll change." He smiled. "Unlikely." Shoyuta shook his head. He hadn't been overly impressed by too many of his prospective students this year, sans the kid with the explosion quirk and the quirkless wonder who'd hacked all the robots. "Oh, that look on your face tells me otherwise. Care to share?" "I'm not allowed to discuss my students with an outsider." "Oh, Shoyuta. I'm hurt. I thought we were friends." "I have no friends." "Lie. I'm your friend. And so are Masa and Ken." He got the distinct impression that Viridian was sticking his tongue out at him. "Come on, we've got 10 minutes. We should at least finish the loop." He wouldn't admit it, but he was starting to enjoy Viridian's crazy patrol route. As mentioned earlier, it was never really the same twice, but it typically took them through the south side and then halfway across town. The pattern was seemingly random, but it seemed that they always found the most trouble. At first, he'd been wary of patrolling the south side. There were awful rumors of that place, and many doubted that people lived there at all. The conditions were terrible too. Heroes and villains alike avoided the place like the plague, even police typically ignored it. It used to be the original Muzutafu before the city started expanding, but a major earthquake decades ago made it into a ghost town. Now, the south side had become a lawless area. Well, it was lawless until the vigilante showed up. It seemed Viridian's presence was doing the place a lot of good. Now Shoyuta patrolled the area even without the vigilante. The whole point of heroism was to help people, after all. Though if he kept his phone a little closer at hand on those nights, he'd never tell anyone. The stigma was there for a reason, after all. Fine. Workaholic. The vigilante pushed in his chair and tidied up the table before joining the impatient hero. You do realize that cleaning up the tables is part of their job, right? Viridian twitched. Had Shoyuta hit a nerve? And do you have any idea how irritating it is when people don't clean up after themselves? I've worked in restaurants before. Yeah, it's part of the job, but it shouldn't have to be. We've got about 1,000,000 other tasks to take care of aside from cleaning tables and making orders, you know. Detail cleaning, dishes, making more food, temping everything, cleaning the floors, stocking the utensils and napkins, refilling condiment bottles, cleaning Krathkos and soda fountains, refilling sinks, cleaning drains, cleaning the bathrooms, sweeping outside, trash, windows, counting the registers in the safe, answering the phone, getting orders out on time, paperwork, bank runs, more restocking. Viridian grew more and more irritated with each task he listed off. And then this beach calls. Oh, my order wasn't made right, and I tried calling 16 times but nobody picked up. And what the hell are you supposed to say? Sorry, we had a rush with a line out the door and 3 people on staff with a last-minute call-out, so nobody was available to take the phone? And then of course there's that one family who lets their kid make an absolute war zone out of the food you made them, and then they don't even bother to tell you about it so you can clean it up without having to SLV on your knees on tile with a bottle of bleach. For a long moment, Shoyuta just stared at Viridian as the vigilante panted. Are you okay? No. Nobody who works in the food industry is okay. He shook his head. Alright, okay. So that was one landmine Shoyuta never wanted to step on again. So you hold a job outside the vigilante business? Unlike pros, we don't get paid for what we do. Viridian replied, visibly calmer than before. But no, I'm unemployed right now. I did hold a few different jobs when I was younger, but I've decided to dedicate myself to protecting people. Admirable, but how do you pay your bills? The other man snorted. What bills? He held up his flip phone. This baby doesn't cost me a yen. He grinned, but didn't elaborate further. Please tell me that you've got a stable roof over your head? Shuta's stomach was sinking quickly. Was Viridian homeless? I do have a stable roof over my head. It leaks a little, but I've fixed it up. Why does this not make me feel better? He was about to say more when Viridian suddenly stopped. They'd been walking through an alleyway and Shoyuta couldn't see anything that would tip the other man off to something being wrong. But he'd learned a while back to trust the vigilante's gut. Suddenly, laughter echoed around the alley. So we meet again, Viridian. And who's your friend? Nobody you need to worry about. Viridian answered confidently back, but Shoyuta could see the tensing of his muscles. Someone you know? Shoyuta loosened his capture weapon. You could say that. I still haven't forgiven you for what you did to me. The voice which Shoyuta now recognized as distinctly feminine held a hard edge. Ah, don't hold it against me? Viridian shrugged half-heartedly. It was nothing personal, you understand? You're just not my type. You broke my heart. Are you serious? Shoyuta gave the vigilante an incredulous look. She's your ex. Not really, I mean she confessed to me, and I turned her down. I gave you my heart. And you threw it away. You never even gave me the chance. I've idolized you from the moment you first started fighting crime. Viridian, why won't you love me? Because I'm gay, sweetie. Viridian was slowly backing them out of the alleyway, but his answer made Shoyuta startle a bit. He hadn't expected the vigilante to just come out and say something like that so plainly. Then I'll make you love me or you'll die. Okay, not a jealous ex, but a crazy stalker. Noted. Shoyuta wondered if the vigilante dealt with this kind of sheet often. The woman leapt out of the shadows, her bright red hair gleaming in the moonlight. Her hair stiffened into blades for an instant as she threw them out like spears towards Viridian. Shoyuta activated his quirk, erasing hers. What the? Viridian didn't let their advantage go to waste as he kicked her hard, throwing her back against the wall. She quickly recovered and threw down a smoke screen, obstructing Shuta's vision. Damn it. I know you. You're Eraserhead. You can erase quirks just by looking at someone. Impressive but useless in low-visibility environments against a long-range fighter. She paused a moment. So, you're his boyfriend then? Shoyuta and Viridian both choked on their spit. He's like a brother to me. Viridian protested. He's a coworker. Shoyuta protested at the same time. Brother? He mentally questioned the vigilante, but had to dodge out of the way of the woman's hair spears. One scratched his cheek and he winced. You okay? Viridian asked as the two pressed their backs together. Just a scratch. Shoyuta assured him. But then you won't mind if I do this. A moment later, Shoyuta was in the air above the alleyway, being dragged along by Viridian. The two landed atop the roof and took off running. Trust me, she's not someone to fight alone. There's a reason why I avoid her. Viridian said as they finally lost her. Shoyuta opened his mouth to say something, when Viridian gasped in pain. He whipped around sharply to see him crouched on the rooftop, hand clutching his side which was bleeding profusely. Viridian. Shoyuta was by his side immediately, assessing the injury. It was deep and would undoubtedly need stitches. I'm fine. The vigilante panted. Just a scratch. Just a... Shoyuta shook his head in disbelief. I'm taking you to a hospital. He moved to scoop up the injured man, who staggered to his feet. Nope. Sorry, Shoyuta. No can do. Hospitals and I don't mix. I don't care if you mix or not, you need medical attention. I can call Recovery Girl if you don't want to go to a hospital. And I'll get medical attention. At home. He smirked as he leaned backwards off the edge of the roof. See ya later, Eraserhead. Shoyuta ran to the edge of the building, but found no trace of the vigilante. Damn it. He's just too good at disappearing. He pinched the bridge of his nose. You'd better be okay. Let me sleep. Guys, Viridian's hurt again. Fury, what happened? Let me sleep. We ran into some crazy stalker of his who attacked us. When we got away, Viridian dragged me away from the fight. I realized he had a deep gash on his left side. He was losing a lot of blood. Fury, bring him to the hospital, we'll meet you there. Let Zip. Would if I could, but he ran off. Tsuragami, again? Fury, why does he always run off when he's hurt? Let Zip. He said, hospitals and I don't mix, and then jumped off the side of the building. No sign of him. He's just too DMN good at covering his tracks. Fury at Viridian Chaos, you'd better be okay. Let us know you're at least alive. Tsuragami, here's to another sleepless night. Viridian stumbled into the clearing of his home. He was losing a lot of blood, and Sheet wasn't looking good. Honestly, Sheet was looking kind of fuzzy and unfocused. Izuku. Kigo rushed to his side. Kei? What are you doing here? Bad feeling. Glad I came. He scooped up the injured vigilante and carried him inside. Kigo wasted no time in clearing the table and getting out the supplies needed. Sheet, why do you always do this to me? I can stitch myself up. Izuku protested. Nope. What kind of brother would I be if I let you do this yourself? He shook his head and started to get to work. Geez, and just a week before your first day at UA too. Won't Aizawa be suspicious? Probably. Izuku winced as Kigo pulled the stitches a little too tightly. Sorry. No apologies for saving my life. Fine. Kigo was going to say something else, but Izuku was well on his way to passing out. Damn it. Wake up at a decent hour, tomorrow, would ya? Thanks, Kei. Anytime, Zu.